Here we are at, I've got 7:04.
Yep.
Here we are, regular council meeting of Lions Bay on Tuesday, January the 19th at 7:04. I'm in council chambers as is CFO Rook and the office coordinator, Carla. And we have, I understand, 12 people on Zoom as guests, resident guests. So welcome all to those. I'm calling the meeting to order. All those in favor, ayes, nays opposed. Councillors?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
到场如果你不给我喂饭，交给你。
I've got, so for the adoption of the agenda, I'll put that forward. I have some amendments. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott, a second. I'll be quick on my piece. And the first one is a heads up for the Public Works Manager. If I could ask you on item number reports 7A9, and if you could give us a minute on the Lions Bay Beach Park boom. And the other one that is a change and new is on correspondence. Currently, there is an A, which is a list of correspondence. I would like to make that now B, and A will be correspondence procedure. And those are my changes. Council members, do you have any recommendations, changes, suggestions? Let's dispense with the hand up. Just speak for now, and let's whistle through this.
Nothing to add.
Thank you very much.
I'm good.
CAO? Yep.
A clarification, Your Honor. Correspondence B is what?
That is the regular correspondence list.
Oh, okay.
I just shuffled it for Councillor Abbott. He has something he wants to address.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I have a couple of other ads.
Okay.
Sorry, if I could just, sorry, Peter, before you go, I think we were going to do the correspondence piece as council reports. I think that was why Peter was asking.
Yeah, yes. Under 7C council reports, I've got Councillor Abbott penciled in regarding correspondence. Is that what you were referring to, Mayor McLaughlin?
No, but I prefer your change where it is too.
Okay.
So let's just for C, so it'll be Councillor Abbott. Thank you.
And then under staff reports, an item 7A10 would be on table report regarding Lions Bay Fire Rescue or service level.
Thank you very much.
And then on the topics for closed council meeting, add F, closed correspondence.
Okay.
And under reasons for closing, add 90 sub 2, which is matters dealing with provincial and other higher levels of government.
Thank you very much. Everybody's scribbling quickly, but I think we've got it. Any last chance? Amendments, changes, additions?
Just maybe a clarification. So Peter, under closed, there was one of the items in closed that sounded like we were going to use clause N potentially to bring it out in open. And then maybe just make note of another question on a clause N in the closed section. Query whether it should be an open.
We have N as one of the reasons for closing. So when we go into closed, if council decides that the matter to which you're referring needs to be or should be brought into open, then we would do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Council members, last call. Any changes, amendments before I call a motion?
None.
I'm good.
Thank you. Then I will call a motion. All in favor of the agenda as amended? Ayes, nays opposed, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Carried. Next piece, public participation. There's numerous guests that I see, but our time allotment is 10 minutes, 2 minutes per. Sounds like 5 folks to me, unless somebody wants to speak shorter and faster. And the caveat is that if you are addressing council tonight, it's on something that's on our agenda. Carla, I'll watch for you. If there's a resident would like to participate, please raise your hand and we'll get you going. If there's a second one, same thing too, please. Otherwise, I'll move on.
可以，那 Steven 在那呢 ？Steven 带加州卷儿行吗？
不想喝，
还有你姐那豆皮卷儿，
不想吃一两口。
I hear a voice, but I don't see a hand.
豆皮卷儿还有加州卷儿。
都比较也不想吃，然后
Stephen Liu? Mr. Liu?
哇，
Yeah, that's me.
Did you want to address council in the gallery, sir?
Yeah.
You were unmuted, so this is okay. For the gallery members, happy to facilitate everybody, but if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand or show your video so that we can see you. So I'm not sure if there was Mr. Liu, if you wanted to speak. Okay, Mr. Liu, we'll come back. We'll give you another chance. If there's another resident, hands up or a hand in the participant function.
Marek Sretsky, I would like to speak to council.
Please start. You've got 2 minutes, sir.
I sent a letter. I presume you received my letter in reference to sewage plant that was to be referred in this meeting today. Have you?
In correspondence.
Have you received the correspondence from me?
It's later in the agenda.
I ask if you received my correspondence, yes or no? We can't
Yes,
see you. You're not in a picture today for some reason, so we don't know what's happening. You're hiding. You're not in a picture anymore. You have realized that?
I'm looking at myself in the video, but okay.
But
anyhow,
not in my screen, and I'm a very important resident, and I don't see you, so you're not available to residents as physical.
All right, time is ticking on. Your correspondence has been received.
Are you trying to eliminate me from speaking here? I ask you why I cannot see you. You're clearly trying to eliminate me from speaking. I ask you if you received my correspondence. You have not answered it. Are you trying to be abrasive, Mayor? Let me understand it clearly.
All right,
I ask you politely to answer if you received my correspondence.
Sir, I'm muting you. To the council members, can you see me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
visible.
We might need to ask residents to go to gallery view because if it's in speaker view, you can only see a select number of participants.
So I presume it's like on the bottom slide. Okay, thank you. Carla, bring me back in, please.
Should be top right corner, I think, is the view button.
Yeah.
Mr. Schmidt, if you click the view button at the top right corner of your screen, you should have the option to change the view so that you see a gallery view instead of speaker view. Just try those two options and see what you should be able to see everybody in the room.
Okay, so Mary's clearly sitting on the opposite end and not like in any other session. Understood? My 2 minutes now.
No. We've had the educational 2 minutes, sir. So
I had the educational 2 minutes.
Mr. Sretsky, can you just?
Oh, Mr. Mayor, we're starting on the wrong foot, I see here. Mr. Mayor, you're clearly abusing your privileges towards me for last few months. We are clear on that. What are we going to do? Because I deserve 2 minutes to speak to my council.
Can you listen, sir?
Yes, I'm listening, and I'm asking you if it's okay to speak to council.
Sorry,
I asked you if you received my letter.
Through the chair, Mr. Mayor, through the chair, could I just maybe help to diffuse the situation? The active view in the chamber is pan. That's what's coming up in the cameras if you look at the chamber. So, Mr. Sretsky, no one's hiding, the mayor's not hiding. It's just the way your technology and others are picking up the camera. The active view goes to Pam each time in some people's screens when the mayor speaks. So it's trying to diffuse the situation, guys.
Best computer money can buy. So I appreciate your comment, but that's not the case.
Then
Am I allowed to
perhaps,
speak for 2 minutes to the council, yes or no?
As a corporate officer, may I suggest, Mr. Mayor, that you let Mr. Sredsky have his 2 minutes starting now?
Done.
Clock should start ticking.
Thank you. The letter refers to sewage plant repayment plan. There's some suggestions to be paid within 5 or 10 years. I stated in the letter that there's two philosophies of treating such a matter. One is, as described, generally by engineers of the project, which is for the life of the project, which should be, in that case, all the current and future residents get to share the expense. If we do it in any shorter period than year of length of the project, then generally residents are penalized as at the spot. So I would like council to reconsider it and make it appropriate. The only reason we have the situation with the extra expenses is because the in stages administration failed to produce adequate backup money to build a plant. And I don't see a reason why residents should be penalized at this point. Also, there should be a grant for that such a project, normally it is, and it's obligation of mayor to provide or try to obtain a grant. We would like to hear why the grant was not available. Thank you.
I'll deal with the last part, sir. Firstly, there was no grant. There hasn't been one since. Thank you. Any other residents? You have your opportunity in a minute or two left for addressing council and your colleagues. Just a second. I have no hands up. I'm happy to, if somebody wants to go live screen and unmute. Okay, that concludes the public participation, and we'll move on to item number 4, which is review and approval of the minutes of the prior meetings. And that's the regular council meeting, December 15th of 2020. And on your packages, that's page number 7. And I'll put forward the motion that the regular council meeting minutes of December the 15th be approved to circulate. Can I have a hand from the councillor? And then we'll go to discussion, changes, amendments.
How do I raise my hand? Sorry.
And who might be speaking?
It's Tamara Leger. Sorry, I was trying to raise my hand. I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand, but I have a question. Can I ask a question?
It's public participation piece. Sure, why not?
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry. My question is, I know
Thank you for speaking up.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know how to wave my hand, but okay. So my question is around the communications tower. There was a delegation that came and we all presented, and the motion was voted on and it was defeated. Correct? I just wanted to confirm that. I have since understood that the question, I understood both from the correspondence, your follow-up correspondence, Ron, to me following my participation in that council meeting, that the item was then like a dead duck. You didn't use that term, but you basically communicated to me that it was not going to be on the table for future councils. It was voted, decided on, and it was put aside, voted down. I have since come to understand that that you were at an infrastructure meeting along with Councillor Bain as well as Peter De Jong, and you initiated conversation around this communications tower, and that had already been defeated at a council meeting, but then we're at a meeting where it was allowed to come forward as a new idea back on the table. So my question is, I guess my question is, how is something that has been addressed as a community, you voted on it as a council, it was defeated, how is it now coming back into conversational play?
Thank you very much, Tamara, for your question. I'd like to confirm that I did send you an email along those lines. CAO, do you have a quick update for us?
So the short answer, Ms. Leger, is that any matter can be brought back. However, that's not what's being done here. The question of whether or not cellular communications are something that is needed by the village is an issue that pertains to the different ways in which, or the different options that we have for communications with our infrastructure. For example, our water treatment plants and our pressure reducing valve stations, our wastewater treatment plant, all these different pieces of infrastructure are connected to SCADA communication devices, and they require different ways in which staff, public works staff in particular, can communicate with the equipment. So to get alarms, to reset something, to increase the dosage of chlorine in the water, for example, all without leaving home, which is of financial benefit to the community because we don't incur costs if they don't have to come out to the to do it in person. So there are only a certain number of options available in order to address those kinds of infrastructure communication needs. That is what the infrastructure committee is revisiting. Having, you know, the cell tower proposal as it was presented was defeated. Nobody's bringing that proposal back. However, cellular communications are one of the different kinds of communication options that are still on the table in terms of the ways in which municipal infrastructure needs to communicate with staff. So we're looking at all of those options. Mr. Jaffer and myself are pulling together a report for the next IC meeting in February, and the committee will review once again what those options look like, what the needs for communication are. As well, we have the UBC research study that is studying our watersheds, I should say, and the effects of climate change on our watersheds. And the importance of that study is very important for the whole community. And we have pledged to try and support that to the best of our ability. And again, that requires communications options to be examined and to support that study to the best of our ability. So we're looking at all those things. We're not trying to bring back a 60-meter tower that was defeated by council. So I hope that clarifies your concerns, and please don't hesitate to send us further correspondence if you have other questions or wish clarification on that.
Okay, so just so that the communications tower is back on the table through the infrastructure committee?
Not the communications tower that was put, not the proposal that was put before council, but whether cellular communications can be affected in a number of different ways. So maybe we would be looking at 2 or more smaller towers in different areas, or we might be looking at, we're looking at all options. So it may be that other options besides cellular will prevail as the most effective communications means or methodologies. It may be that we have a blend or a combination of different kinds of communications technologies. But those are all the things that we're looking at because we do have communications needs and we have to address those. So we're examining all that.
Okay, so my just a follow-up clarification question then is, so the communication tower or towers that are now being discussed as part of are currently being discussed anew under the infrastructure committee, are you also making sure that whatever conversations are happening are in alignment with our OCP? Which is, as I understand it from the Ministry of Municipal Governments that I copied you on that correspondence, we're bound by it. The village council mayor and council are bound by that, right?
Yeah, we're not bringing forward any new proposals at this point. All we're doing is examining our communications needs for our infrastructure and our watershed research communications needs, and looking at all the options. That's where we're at with this. There's nothing coming forward. There's no proposal being brought forward. And if there is anything in terms of a recommendation from the infrastructure committee, that will come to council and that will be discussed in open meetings. So there'll be lots of opportunity to examine all sides of the issues and the options and the solutions that are proposed. So we're just sort of in early stages of re-examining our needs and the solutions that are available to us.
And actually, thank you very much, CIO, to John. Just to close on this one, Tamara, it's not just, originally, I think our recommendation had to do with the cellular communications. So far, we've explored radio, underground, and a whole bunch of other opportunities. And we've had subject matter experts come to the infrastructure committee with their knowledge. So it's still quite a large work in progress. There's nothing more we can tell you at this point other than it's a work in progress as it comes through the infrastructure committee.
Mr. Mayor, through the chair, maybe I can just add one final comment on that.
Please do.
I think I'd also like to point out that council is fully aware that if it does turn out to be cellular technology of any kind, and specifically as CEO suggested, could it be smaller towers somewhere else, that we are going to go through a public engagement process first and make sure we get residents' input before we proceed to any sort of RFP or proposal.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. But at this point, just because I'd like to close this off on this topic, we're waiting for the information to come forward. Still got to go through our highly technical committee folks, through the senior staff office, and then to council. And we don't expect to see that for another month. I'm going to move. Why not? I see that, John, if you could give me your last name, because I don't want to butcher it. I see you've got your hand up. I know why you want to talk. It does me no good to have you speak at the end after we've made a decision. So, sir, I think we'll just hold on the minute approval. If you've got something you'd like to address with council for 2 minutes, please do so. If you could unmute.
Hello. Hey, everyone. So I'm a new resident here. And I believe I talked to Pamela on the phone. Hi, Pamela. So just regarding the wastewater treatment plant, I sent you guys an email. So can I talk about now or a little bit later?
Now is good, sir.
Now, okay. So, I mean, I addressed three that information. I don't know, because the last meeting that happened, that was before I moved here. So I'm trying to get more information, how the whole discussion between the residents and the council work, and then so regarding my first point, it's I'm wondering if there are any agreements or if any disagreement that happened before has been resolved. How was the last council meeting about this, the wastewater plant? How did the last one go? I just trying to get more information here. See if you guys remember or can provide me more info on that part.
John, I'm going to ask the CAO to respond, but I do have to move the meeting on a little bit. In about an hour or so, we're going to be talking about the waste treatment plant again.
Sure. Okay.
But if you're on the Zoom, so you can go on the internet. If you go to the council package, the agenda, you'll see the information that was presented at the last meeting, and you'll see what the recommendation is for this one that's in front of council now. So all you'd have to do is go to the village website, go to council meetings, go to our one tonight, and download it. And if you look to, I'll even give you the page number, just bear with me for a second.
Oh, it's okay if you guys reply to my email. I just need a quick overview, like a from last time, right? I'm just wondering if this, if this plan that, you guys doing the replacement instead of doing the repairment, if that has been reached agreement with the residents. Because when I talked to all my neighbors, they said they never agreed. And then some neighbor even surprised that, the project went ongoing. So, I mean, yeah, I'm just put out a question here, yeah.
I'm going to go a bit more on this one. This is a touchy topic with some of the residents. The reality is the plant failed. It couldn't be repaired, and villages moved on to repair it. Every step of the way has been telegraphed to all residents in Kelvin Grove, and the opportunity to come back to council for feedback, either directly through Zoom since the pandemic started in March, or through correspondence. And CFO Rook has kept everybody as much up to date with developments as she can. So in terms of all of that, this has been well broadcast what's coming. The plant is now substantially finished. It's substantially operational. And it's our planning now is to put steps in place where repayment would be probably best suited for the residents, starting with at the time of the property tax in July. So, sir, again, if you hang on, you're going to hear more about this in about an hour as we go through everything all over again.
Okay, and then do I have another opportunity to speak after I hear your?
You will. You
okay.
will.
Right.
I'll make sure of that too.
Great.
All right.
And then, sorry.
If you could take your hand down when you're finished.
Oh, I have just one more thing. Just regarding during the COVID time, I talked to Pamela as well, right? COVID time, like even the CRA, everyone is the government is helping the resident, to go through the pandemic time. I just don't feel like during COVID time, talking about collection from the additional collection from the resident, put more their burden on the resident is a good idea in this year. That's my opinion. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your feedback, sir. And we'll catch you later on in the meeting.
Sure.
All right, council. So back after a very robust public participation, I think I'll recap on item number 4, which is the minutes of prior meetings, December 15th.
Sorry, Mayor McLaughlin.
Yep.
Mr. Shore's hand was up.
Mr.
David Shore.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Shore, sorry, my participant list is over. I didn't see your hand. Hey, why not? Mr. Shore, 2 minutes, sir.
Thanks, I'll be quick. And I realize there's a lot of people here, so the hands might be hard to see. At the last meeting, council approved by a split vote to go ahead with the connector project. It looked like there was a few items that were yet to be determined. Will you be going back to get input on the final project?
Sorry, back to who, Mr. Shore?
To the community, to us.
No, the project was approved. There will be further communication, however, starting with the residents on Lions Bay Avenue, waiting of additional information from TransLink staff with respect to particulars on the project.
我也这样。你好，等于我听的意思就是他们之前。
Okay, so what I heard was, no, you won't be coming back to the community on that, other than the people on Lions Bay Ave. Is that the intent?
Yes, for the most part. There will be some communication, obviously, with respect to progress on the project and communication on the project, but the sort of more in-depth communication to begin with will be with those residents on Lions Bay Avenue, adjacent to the multi-use path.
Well, okay, so my comment then is that at this point in time, it's not clear what that project's going to entail. It could encroach upon a road that's already very narrow in places, especially at the blind corner prior to the railroad tracks. And I don't know how you're going to add a trail there, a multi-use trail that could include bikes. I also cannot understand the purpose of the project when, and I've read the materials that you've got in the minutes from previous meetings, for example, but anybody that wants to go from the Lions Bay Beach Park to Kelvin Grove is going to go on the trail that exists from the parking lot over the creek and into the Public Works yard, which is probably a quarter of the distance is walking all the way up Lions Bay Avenue and then back onto the highway to come down. So I can understand why this expenditure, which looks like it would be what, as much as, I think the 25% that is allocated to us was somewhere close to $70,000. So this is a multi-$100,000 project that it just doesn't make sense. So I appreciate that via a split vote, the council approved of this, but it looks to me like you've approved of something that you don't even know the scope of, and we certainly don't either. So I think you should go back for public input. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Short. Okay. And I thought we were robust before. Okay, let's move on to the minutes, December 15th, 2020.
I would just like to tell Mr. Shaw that I will support him on that.
Sorry, what was that, Councillor Abbott?
Just to be consistent, I'd just like to tell Mr. Shaw that I would support him on that public input, and he was a suggestion at the time.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott.
There's a Penny Nelson with her hand up.
Sure, Penny, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Ron. I just wanted to support David Shore. I wrote a letter to council to this effect. There was no public consultation about the Lions Bay connector. We're going to be spending $66,000 on something that this village never knew it wanted, never mind actually needs. And I'm not sure why anybody who lives on that road was not informed, never mind asked, whether a portion of their front yards could be taken away for something that we actually don't need. And my suggestion really would be, and Ron, you wrote back to me without CCing council, but I did send council my response. So I hope everybody's had a look at that. This was an easy one. If your front yard was about to be dug up by a width of about 3 meters or whatever it's going to take, surely you'd want to know. The other thing is, I do agree with David Shore that there are already at least 2 points of access for Kelvin Grove residents to access either the beach or the bus stop with trails that exist already. So I'm really not sure why 66,000 of our tax dollars needed to be spent on this at all. And to that extent, I'd like to thank the 2 councillors, I mean, one of which is my husband, and the other one is Fred Bain, who voted against this project. And as you all know, and in my letter, and it's on the agenda package, I do absolutely support the notion that people have a right to know what's going on. They have a right to have a say, and they have a right to know that whatever input they deliver actually will impact council's decision, because none of you are there to actually make up your own minds. You're there to represent us. And to that end, I truly hope that those of you who voted for this might reconsider and say, well, let's rescind and let's go back and ask people what they really want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Penny. I'm being facetious, say maybe 5th time lucky we'll get to the minutes here, which are quite inconsequential compared to the public feedback. Thank you to everybody that spoke. The motion is that the minutes of December 15th be approved as circulated. I'll put that forward. I have a hand from a councillor for a second, and then we'll go to any changes amendments. Thank you, Councillor Bain. They are on page 7. I have no changes or amendments. Councillors, if we could whistle through this, please put your hand up and unmute and Jim.
Should I go first?
Please do.
Page 13, I may be misreading this, but I'm not sure. First set of sort of sub bullets, third bullet down. We're not talking about the Brunswick Hill in this land tenure lease. Start at 2 years and roll into a 20 or 30-year term. I don't recall that, but surely we're not suggesting we're going to take a 2-year lease. What can we do with that?
No, I actually misspoke on that, Councillor Abbott. The application process has actually changed recently, and so we're actually in the process right now of amending our submission. And what we are applying for is a sponsored Crown grant. And so that would be for a long-term lease and with the potential to have the land gifted at the end of that term. So there's opportunity there for the municipality to own the land.
From the beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have two other things that maybe comments of business arising, but they're really small. I should draw your attention to them now, and they'll come up later in the meeting. On page 10, Mayor McLaughlin requested an overview of the top 12 council priorities. Later we discussed there's only 11. I have a reason to think there should be 12, so I thought I would just, won't bring it on business arising, we'll bring it up later. And there was one other, probably a business arising request really, that I just thought of is the village update statistics, which the mayor brings as a verbal report. Could council get a copy of those? Or could they put in the meeting? Because I was trying to think back on what they were and my notes weren't very clear. Is that possible?
What
I
were
know
you
it's not a
asking?
minutes correction issue, but so.
Could you reference the minutes and make the request again, Councillor Rapp?
Page 17, the mayor report, the first part, the verbal statistics update that you give us from time to time.
Yeah.
Could we get those into the minutes? I was trying to refer to them and my notes are kind of scratchy. It would be nice if we actually had them typed in that we could see them.
Carla? Yep, done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Any changes, amendments, suggestions? There being none, call a motion for acceptance of the minutes as amended. All those in favor, ayes, nays opposed.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Approved. Next one is the special meeting minutes on Jan 14th. And that the special council meetings of Jan 14th be approved as circulated. I'll put forward that motion. Can I have a hand from a councillor? Thank you. Changes, amendments, please. If any. I have none. I'm going to call a motion in a second. There being none, calling the motion. All in favor, ayes, nays opposed.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Carried. Business arising from the minutes. I think with the work that's in the package, I think pretty much everything is covered tonight. That was my assessment. If somebody has a different view, please speak up.
Good.
Councillor Abbott, you have something?
No, I said I'm good.
Thank you very much. Then we'll move on. Unfinished business. And these are the follow-up action items from previous meetings. The first one is for Councillor Barmeyer. Do you have a comment on your action that you were to do?
Yeah, I don't think there's like sort of reasonable alignment with some sensitivity training for us that would align with this program. So I think we might have to look somewhere else for some funding.
Thank you very much. Carla, could you strike? Thank you. I'm next up, and that's Mr. MP Weiler's childcare program, which I sent to the PAC chair, and the closure date with that was January 7th. So that's a strike as well. The next one is mine as well. It's responding to Mr. Wozni. That's been done. And Councillors Cunliffe and Abbott on Mr. Peterson and the seniors. You're up.
You want to go first? I can say I have not yet responded to Mr. Peterson. My intent was to talk to John and Pippa Phillips while I was at Tai Chi today and did not have the opportunity. So I will do that within the next week and follow up with him then.
I've reached out to Louis. His health is not good. I've also spoken to his wife, Carol. And I think Jamie's along the right track there. Something going to be coming to us soon for others to for a sort of succession plan for that group. But I was informed that they won't be applying for a grant this year. I don't know that further response is required. I think we should probably just receive it and not reply right now, and then we'll see what comes up, is my suggestion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. So my recommendation is that since the both of you have touched base, that this is a strike, and if with your ears to the ground, if something comes forward, that you bring it to us. If that's fine with the two of you.
Absolutely.
I'm good.
Thank you. Good strike. The response to Mrs. Bradbury, and that was to the substance of that was the COVID-19 funding, and the part of that go to the school, which doesn't fit with the government's program, but I have responded to her, so that is a strike as well. And Councillor Abbott, on your behalf, I know you've already responded to Mr. Strong regarding the suites. We're a strike on that too, Carla. Thank you. Moving on to reports, and so the CAO, the Information Report 2021 Council Strategic Priorities Quarterly Reporting, and for the record, there are 11. By my counting, that the Information Report 2021 Council Strategic Priorities Quarterly Reporting we received. I'll put forward that motion if I can have a second, and we'll go to the commentary. Thank you, secondary. Just on my piece, I'll be quick on this. I like the format. I like the message. I like the target dates. And I think it's a work in progress, and I see that it's very front loaded to Q1. Thank you very much to CAO and staff. Council members, any comments? Please, no. Evel?
I would like to add a 12th. One thing that dropped off from last year's priorities that we'd all put down as the highest ranking was stormwater drainage water management plan. I think the way we came up with the list this year by all asking for 3 and some of us gave a few more didn't really allow for us all to put 10 and then pick out the best 10 the way we had done previously. And as I corrected in the minutes last meeting, I did actually bring it up. It just wasn't worded very accurately, but I did talk to it. I do think it's still very important. I think I would get support from other councillors that believe it's important. So I'd like to add it to a 12 and go back to the top 12.
If I may, just Mayor McLeod. I just think that stormwater drainage would be something that would be covered under infrastructure master plan and supporting the advancement of prioritized projects under the AMP. So it'd be one of those things that has been sort of looked at and commencement or commenced. But, you know, so my thought would be to just include it in that particular topic.
Could we list it in that particular topic in that case? Because one of the deficiencies as pointed out on the infrastructure master plan is it's very weak on the subject and it didn't go into it.
Right.
Councillor Abbott, might I suggest, because I think this, without making it a very fulsome discussion with council, I would suggest that council would concur with you to put this as a place mark, but that the discussion takes on when we deal with our capital expenditures program. and we can deal with it in a more factual way versus, I'm not sure what the objective is. I'm not sure where, putting it as council's priority puts it as a pretty significant priority. And I think we could probably have a discussion for 20 minutes or half an hour, and I'm not sure this is the right time for it. But I'm fine with having it on there as a place mark, and we can bring it up again, certainly before the next quarter, if you're fine with that.
I appreciate that. If we could just add it to the list, yeah.
Okay, fine. And so we'll, it's not an orphan, it's an addition with the description and the desired target. So Councillor Rabbit, if you can think about that so that when it does come up the next time, you've got it on your fingertips, what it is the objective is. That's fine.
We'll do that.
Thank you very much. Any other comments regarding the priorities?
Not for me.
No, if there's council none, then I'll move on. I will, I'm not sure I'm going to be speaking with the community, but this will be one of the things that I bring out as a link to in the next week or two. There we go. So I think per this, unless there's further discussion from my council colleagues, I will call a motion and that we receive this. About one last chance for commentary. Going. Calling the motion. All in favor? Ayes. Nays opposed. And it's fine.
Aye. Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much, staff, for putting this forward, and we look forward to working with you for the next report. Next one, Public Works Manager. Excuse me. Public Works Manager request for decision. Encroachment application 95 Seaview Place. And the recommendation, I'll read it for the record, that the municipality enter in an encroachment agreement and section 219 covenant with the owner of 95 Seaview Place in substantially the same form as the draft agreement and covenant attached to this report, that the said section 219 covenant be registered against the property at 95 Seaview Place in the land title office, and that the CAO or CFO and mayor be authorized to execute both the encroachment agreement and the section 219 agreement. I will put that forward as a motion. Council, can I have one of you raise your hand, please? Thank you. And so that is in the discussion thing, and I will lead the discussion. We also have another encroachment agreement following. In my view, it's an opportunity to respect staff's work on the project, and that I think this is a part of our job, but I think in my personal view, knowing every piece of minutia on this is not where I want to go. I accept the staff's recommendation. So if you've got some really driving comments on this for or against or a major questioning, please do it. Otherwise, let's move on to the next one as well. Open for any commentary. Actually, yes, Councillor Bain.
Yeah, I do have a question about it in comparing the two encroachment applications. The second application shows an engineered structure with lock blocks, I presume it is. Whereas the first one, it looks like it's a stacked rock wall. It says nothing about an engineered design, and I'm kind of concerned about it in as much as I've looked into, on our property, we've got a lot of stacked walls and we've seen the successes and failures of them. And in talking with the building inspector regarding our property, he turned me to a brick supplier to do an area on our property. And when I talk to them, they say, without an engineer, if you go up 4 feet of your stacked material, you have to set back the next row twice the height of the one you just did. And I don't see that in this drawing at all. And I am concerned, has an engineer had a look at this, or are we kind of winging on this one, or what's up?
Your worship, if I may.
Please.
Through the chair, the owner does have a geotechnical engineer involved. However, a design or a plan will not be done until council approves it. There's a reluctance to proceed with a design without knowing if council would approve. So they do have a geotechnical engineer working with them.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Abbott.
I had a similar question on one is a sealed drawing, the other one doesn't. So just to confirm, NISA, there will be a sealed drawing for this work prior to proceeding.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, if I can just interject for one moment. The building inspector did look at this, and we do have provision in our zoning bylaw where the building inspector has the discretion where you've got a series of walls. So if a wall is less than 1.2 meters or 4 feet, it doesn't need an engineer. If it's more than that, or there's a series of walls that together comprise a height that's more than that, then the discretion falls upon the presumption is that you're going to need an engineer, but the building inspector has the discretion to find circumstances that's not necessary. On a preliminary basis, he was okay with this wall in the manner in which it was to be constructed. However, as Mr. Jaffers pointed out, there is a geotech standing by, subject to council approval. However, I just want to point out that in the building inspector's opinion, that wasn't necessary in these circumstances, or may not be necessary in these circumstances.
Okay, but it is happening, so we'll accept that. Just an observation. I did drive down and have a look. Both of these are kind of similar. The second one maybe with a little less clarity, but I had a look at the neighboring properties, and certainly the first one down on Seaview, the boundary or the setback line is pretty much set by walls on properties on either side, and I would assume by this drawing that he intends to line up with those walls.
That's correct, Councillor Abbott.
Okay, and then I just have one last comment. Drainage, one of my pet subjects. So there isn't really much formal drainage in this area. Not sure what there was years ago, but I think we should at least ask engineers that are presenting these designs to address it. I mean, address it could be, the water runs the other way. It's not on the neighbouring property, so therefore we're not doing it. We're not making it worse. But I think we should now maybe ask them to at least address the drainage situation each time, because all these encroachments over the years have taken away our drainage ditches in many, many areas of the village. And I think we need to be very sensitive to that.
Public Works Manager, do you have a comment?
No, I in principle agree. Seaview does not have and has not ever had a drainage ditch on that side of the road or the other side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, Councillor Abbott?
No, those are my comments and questions.
There you go. Councillor Farmer, you're good? Thank you. Councillor Cunliffe, I presume you're good?
Yep, straightforward to me.
Thank you. Call the motion. All in favor? Ayes, nays opposed?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Unanimous. Next one. Same story in this. I'll read it out and I'll go. For my council colleagues, I've put up I've taken down my participant list because there's been a lot of screen action here. So either use the thumbs up icon or put your hand up and unmute, and we'll get right to you. So next one is, again, this Public Works Manager request for decision, encroachment application 315 Kelvin Grove Way, which is on page 57 of your package, and staff recommendations of municipality enter a new encroachment agreement in section 219 covenant with the owners of 315 Kelvin Grove Way in substantially the same form as the draft agreement and covenant attachment to this report. Second piece, that the said section 219 covenant be registered against the property at 315 Kelvin Grove Way in the land titles office, and that CAO or CFO and mayor be authorized to execute both the encroachment agreement and the section 219 covenant. I put forward that motion. Can I have a hand as a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Breen, Councillor Burmer. open for discussion on this one, unless you'd like to lead it, Public Works Manager. You're good, thank you. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Abbott?
No, I just, my comments are similar to the first one, other than this one is a geotech sealed design. And to Councillor Bain's point, you'll notice these stacked blocks actually lean backwards, unlike the other ones which are vertical. So, but they are taller though, they're 2.5 meters. So I have no issue with it.
Thank you very much. Councilors, any other comments? I'm going to call on a second. There being no other additional comments or questions, I'll call a motion. All in favor, ayes, nays opposed.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. Next piece up is item 4, CFO information report, BDO planning report, which the council package starts at page 87. And the staff recommendation is that the information report, BDO planning reports, be received for information purposes. CFO, you have the floor.
The video planning report is presented to council every January. It highlights and explains the key issues relevant to the audit of the December 31st, 2020 financial statements. There's no material changes in it from prior years. And this year's audit is scheduled for April 12th to 16th, and it will be done remotely again. The interim audit in the spring or the year-end audit last year and the interim audit in the fall this year were done remotely, and this will be done remotely as well. So were there any questions?
Councilors, unmute and ask if you will.
Guess I'll go first if no one else wants to. So yeah, I had a question about whether it was done virtually or remotely, so thanks for answering that. On the page 6 of this actual report, I'd like some clarity on the second paragraph, last sentence. I don't know if I'm understanding this. It says, our planning audit procedures, we have rebutted the mandatory risk assessment. Am I reading that correctly? There's a mandatory risk assessment that they are not going to do? And so that's, you said it's no different to normal, and that's what we normally do, but can you explain that, Pam, or anyone else?
Just I'm trying to find it, 1 sec.
Page 6. Risks noted. The second set of risks.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that. Sorry, I read this whole thing. I missed that. I mean, I know the revenue is a big thing they audit in terms of recognizing it in the correct period. It's particularly in the case of our grants where we get multi-year grants and we haven't physically received the grants, but we need to make sure we accrue them in the period in which we do the work. But the actual comment that say we've rebutted the mandatory risk assessment, it's the rebutted that's throwing me. I guess when I first read it, I interpreted it that they were doing their usual risk assessment because they do a lot of work during the audit on revenue recognition. But I could get more clarification on that for you.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. And then I have one further question that I'm assuming would have to be answered in close, but I'm sure I can answer it here. There's an estimated fee, there's reference to standard fee schedule. Could we in close get details of the build-up, the hours and the rates?
Yes, we could.
Thank you. That's all I have.
There you go. Councilors Bain, Barmer, or Cunliffe, any questions?
No.
There being none, call a motion. All in favor of receiving the report? Ayes, nays opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and I think we'll just drop and pause for a second. The next two items are quite significant. And to do with the water, waste and sewer budgets, and then followed by the KG waste treatment plant financing options. So the CFO is going to be on the hot seat shortly. But in terms of, before I go through the motion and do it to her, for the draft water, solid waste and sewer budgets, I'd ask that we split this into three and hold our vote to the end, if that's fine, CFO. So we focus on one at a time, then move to the next. So we'll ask our questions in series versus running through the whole pack. So the motion is that that the report 2021 draft water, solid waste and sewer budgets be received for information purposes. I'll put that forward. Can I have a hand from one of my colleagues to move? Thank you. Discussion is, actually, we'll move to the CFO, if that's fine. So CFO, if you can start first on the draft water.
Okay, so just overall, with regard to the three budgets, I just wanted to say the purpose of this sort of initial look at the budget is for the purpose of setting the user rates for the bylaws that are passed in February. So the attached budgets address mainly the operating expenses and smaller capital. The larger capital projects that are part of the infrastructure master plan will be addressed when we review the capital in February, along with the general fund, because those are items that are funded through property taxation. So I just had a few points. If we turn to the water, so going down to the comment one, I put a 3% user rate increase in this, more or less as a placeholder, just so we can see what the results would be and how we'd end with the water surplus we would see. And then the hope is to compare that to sort of what our amortization is. As we had talked about when we had our asset management presentation, in the past, we haven't been budgeting for depreciation. So it's something I think we need to start looking at, is doing the budget so we're finishing with a bit of a surplus. We can start putting that money aside for future replacement of assets. And okay, so that's why the 3% is in there. Obviously, it's council's decision as to what the user rate would be. I had just wanted to put in sort of a number to give you a sense of what a 3% increase in taxation would give you. I also wanted to talk about point 4, and I'm sorry, the point about salaries, which was point 6. So overall, we've done a salary model and the labor costs have increased about 2.4% overall, but public works increased 6.2%. And that was a result of something we call annualization. We had a position in 2020 that was filled. It was a vacancy, but it had been vacant for a while, and it was Kelsey's public work position. So in 2020, it was only budgeted for 8.5 months because she didn't start until the middle of April. So what happens in the following year is you take a larger increase in your salaries because the 2021 budget includes her salary for the whole year. And the same thing happened with 2 other positions. We had 2 people who were at a public work technician 1 level. And according to our union agreement, after 2 years, they can move to another position, a public works technician 2, which they moved through that partway through 2020. So again, in 2021, we have the entire higher salary, and that salary was about 6% higher. So I just wanted to explain that. And then there was also a fairly big jump in the professional services. And that's because included in the budget is the Upper Baby Water Main survey design. And we discussed that at the prior council meeting, and staff were given the okay to go ahead and apply for an infrastructure planning grant for that project. It's $90,000 in total, but we attribute 60% of the cost to water and 40% of the cost to public works. So just at a high level, that's what I wanted to point out. But if there are any other questions about the water budget?
There you go, Councillor Barmer.
Yeah, just a quick question, Pam. Is there some way to, like, I guess, qualify the additional resources that we get for that? So what does this translate to into practical terms? It's not just a raise for nothing, and it's not just a position for nothing. What do they add to the portfolio of services?
Yes, actually, I think the public works manager could maybe address the difference between the 2 positions and the advantages to us.
Okay. So the move from a Public Works Tech 1 position to a Public Works Tech 2 position is essentially predicated upon 2 years service as a Public Works Tech 1. Essentially what that implies is that we pay a lower rate for the employees' first 2 years as they learn about the village, as they learn about the water system, as they learn about operations. And after those 2 years, plus course requirements, so there's a series of courses they're required to take and become certified in water and wastewater operations. Once they complete that and their 2 years service, they move to the standard wage, the Public Works 2 wage.
Are you good with that, Councilor Barmier?
Yeah, no, thanks. I just wanted to put it on the record. Thanks, appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Abbott? Oh, Councilor Bain first up.
Oh, okay. Pam, on page 124 of 222, I'm looking at insurance. I just have a question here. That something struck me odd. Is there a reason the insurance between 2019 actual and 2020 actual had a jump of about 32%, whereas the current budget from 2021 or for 2021 versus 2020 goes up about 8%. Why the big jump back then and not now?
The big jump is, this is equipment insurance, and it's based on our statement of values. So as we were doing the asset management plan, we realized in 2019 that a lot of our assets were grossly undervalued. So it was a combination of just the rate increase, which actually in 2019 took a jump as well. But it was just, we started getting better information on the replacement value of our assets. So we did take a hit in that in 2019. And I'm expecting a little bit more of a hit in 2020. It was when we determined what the the true value, the replacement value of the weight was, the water tank was, because we were actually replacing it. So when we apply for the insurance, like I say, there's the rate increase, but we also try to fine tune what the true replacement value of our assets are. So when we were looking at it this year as well, we realized we had to increase the replacement value of our PRVs. So that's going to cause an increase as well for water this year. So it's a combination of two things: improving on the values of our assets and making sure we're ensuring the right value, as well as the rate increase.
Great, thanks a lot.
Councillor Abbott?
Thanks. So Pam, I just want to explore a little further on two of the things you touched on already, I guess. And we go to the salaries first. So the comparison, the change we do here each time is you compare budget to budget. I think I mentioned this last time. For me, forecasting, comparing actuals to budget is often more relevant, because it's, starting point is what you actually achieved in you spent in the previous year. But the 32,000 that you're showing from one budget to the next relates to what you said earlier about the additional full-time equivalents that Nai explained. And then the other, because the actual increase from year on year is actually 68,000. So that means the other 36,000, sorry, the 32,000 is what I explained with the positions changing in the training, and the other 38,000 would be because the one role was not for the full year. Is that correct?
Yeah, in terms of the whole 32,000 change budget to budget, it was a combination of, the biggest hit was the annualization of the salary, 8.5 months 1 year, 12 months the other, plus the full year at the higher rate for the two positions that moved up to wastewater treatment level two, Public Works Technician level 2. And I can speak to year-to-date 2020 numbers are not final yet. We have a lot of adjusting entries we do as part of year-end for payroll. So that number is not final. But one thing I will be bringing to council, probably in the second meeting in March, is just a comparison of year to year going back, actual to actual, because I do agree it is hard to compare actual to budget. because for example, in 2019, one of the reasons, I wouldn't say it was artificially low, but that was the first year, if you remember, we did an actuarial adjustment because one of the things we have to book to salaries is the full cost of sick time, but we can't get sick time paid out here. So that's overstates the payroll costs. And that was a cumulative effect over time that we had accrued way too much for sick time. So we chose in 2019 to have an actuarial evaluation of what our sick time truly should be. And it was about $120,000 overstated. So that amount was a credit to salaries in 2019. So that's one of the reasons why that I would say that it's not artificially low, but it doesn't just reflect the cost of salaries. So like say in March, we will be bringing, or sorry, don't know which month, anyway, late February, early March, we'll be bringing an analysis over several years of the year-to-year increase just in the actual and look at the varying components and the reasons why.
Okay, so that, yeah, I guess that explains a whole bunch of questions I had when I was looking back at the actuals, which are significantly lower already.
Right.
So just going to the salaries, for example, when you say year to date is not year end. Is it a month less than year end, or
the actual
how many weeks is represented by the 329,000 as opposed to 365?
The actual payroll would be in there, but like I say, it's the year-end adjustments. We have to adjust for vacation accruals and the sick time accrual. We're waiting for an update of the actuarial evaluation. So we usually don't have, I mean, it's not going to change by $100,000, but there will be changes to that number. So right now it's not a final 2020 number.
Okay, but it could explain $30,000. Okay, let me say.
Yes.
I mean, it could explain that much. All right. So the professional fees and services for the year, and I know you've pointed out the additional design work we're going to do, which was 54,000, if I remember correctly. But I'm still
90,000 in total, but the water share is 54,000.
Yeah, 54,000. Yeah, well, it's 54,000. But what's the further explanation for the fact that we only spent 18,700 year to date? I mean, 90,000 less than we plan to budget for next year is spent this year to date. It's a significant number.
Yes, and sorry, I left that at my desk, the breakdown of the 65, explaining the variance. Part of it was the general contract services. We like to keep a budget in there in case something comes up, and we didn't spend any of that last year. And the UBC hydrology contribution, again, they haven't invoiced us, so that was 10,000 of it there. But I can provide more detail of that for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The year-to-date actuals are hard to jump from 18 to 108. Okay. One last comment on that. Rock slope remediation.
I'm sorry? No, go ahead.
I thought you were
Councillor
something previous. Rock slope remediation, should that not also be a rebudgeted item?
Yes, I did rebudget it. It's in 0.8 because we didn't do it. We didn't spend all of it. So I did rebudget it.
Okay, but in 0.5, it's not listed as a rebudgeted, so it should have been rebudgeted.
Yes, yeah, that was misleading.
Okay, my last question relates, and it's going back to number 4, going back to maintenance, or not back to, but to maintenance. And we have a list of why that had such a dramatic change. So I understand now the settlement chamber cleaning is done every 3 to 5 years and the cycles come up. Are we saying that this UV reactor maintenance is the same thing? Is that part of the same?
No.
Every 3 to 5 years?
No, the UV reactor maintenance is annual, and it's something we've, with the age of our UV reactors, we're increasing the maintenance of it in 2021.
Oh, so we're doing it more frequently?
Yes, we're doing that more frequently. And then the settlement chamber cleaning, it was due this year, but it's not something we do every year.
Okay. Yeah, those are my questions on that section.
Thank you very much.
So I look
Thank you
forward
very
to the
much, Councillor.
year-to-date comparison. I think that will be very enlightening, or very interesting, should I say.
And long awaited.
Sorry, are you talking about the year-to-date for maintenance?
No, you mentioned in future we're going to get a forecast or budget that goes back to
Yes.
actuals. I mean actuals, not year-to-date.
For salary, for salaries, yes.
This is a compensation review that the CFO will have to us before the end of February, at the end of February.
And then are we making comments tonight on whether we believe a 3% increase is relevant, adequate or not? Or is that for a future meeting?
Yes, I would like to get direction from council on those rates at this meeting, because at the next meeting I have to bring 3 readings of the bylaw. So there will be time to look at this again at the next meeting and adjust any rates you may have given me, but I would like guidance on that for this meeting. That's the usual practice to get it at the meeting in January.
So to recap then, which is now staff's normal practice, is to come forward with a recommendation, ask for council's feedback and questions, which we now just concluded. So sticking within this section of the 3 parts of this budget, I think Councillor Abbott, I think the key piece is the acceptance of the increases or the changes as shown. And let's have any discussion on that. For me, I'm fine with the 3%, knowing that it's subject to it coming back to us for a final review at the next council meeting. I'd be happy to go. Councillor Barmeyer, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Pam, I was just curious how that 3% lines up with any recommendations we would have had out of the asset management planning.
I think the recommendations in the asset management plan were like historically, we haven't been putting aside money, like trying to budget for a portion of depreciation. So the depreciation, for example, for here is 211,000 based on historical value. And that includes $46,000 a year for the new wastewater treatment plant. So that's a relatively new asset. So we get sort of a sense of how much we would have to put aside for 50 years to have enough money to replace it when it's at the end of its useful life. And right now we're only showing a transfer to water surplus of 23,000. So by that, I would suggest that a 3% income would actually probably be the lowest, as low as you'd want to go.
Okay.
And then obviously there's other ways of funding the infrastructure that we'll be talking about when we look at the infrastructure master plan and the asset budget in February.
Thanks, Pam.
There you go. So just to recap then, I think I'll rotate through council and ask along the lines of, well, we're going to receive the information. Is there any recommendation or changes in terms of percentage, either revenue or expenditure that you're looking for, or are you fine as it is? So we'll do this in reverse order. Councillor Cunliffe, sorry to catch you. How do you stand on this budget?
I'm happy to accept Pam's recommendation. If this is the prudent figure for her to work with for the 3%, then I think we hear what she has to say when she comes back. So happy to receive.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunliffe. Councillor Barmeyer?
Yeah, that clarification helped me, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bain? You're muted, Councillor Bain. Councillor Bain, you're muted. Can you unmute him, Carla?
There we go. Yeah, this thing goofed up again. Yeah, the budget looks better than my computer does right now. Thanks. I'm good with 3.
You're good. Thank you very much. There's more than the 3. There's the other stuff too. Councillor Abbott, you can close the deal for us.
I think, and as has been suggested by some residents, I think we should reconsider this year, and I've made this statement before and other things. I personally, and I know many of us, haven't had any change in our income, but that's not the case for all of residents in the community. I think if there was ever a year to keep the increase down to a minimum. And by that, I mean something that does not add surplus. We increase amortization and keep it down to just the actual cost that we need, given the COVID world environment we live in. We should really give that some consideration this year. It's not normal. It's not a normal year. And for many people, it's really difficult. So I would like to suggest that we have no increase.
Specific to the 3% on the water user rates, or do you have another target in mind?
I will probably repeat this several times as we go through this budgeting cycle if I need to, but it's going to be a consistent theme for me. Unless there's an actual operating cost that is greater than what we're taking in, I think this is not the time to be stuffing or filling the coffers. This is a time to get it down to just our operational costs until everyone gets through this horrible pandemic world we're living in. So I will probably bring this up each time.
Thank you very much. Just a second. All right. Thank you very much for your comments. And we'll go to the CFO on this one. And then I've got a suggestion, see if it works for you. CFO Rook.
The only comment I would make, and I say this as a taxpayer myself, we're seeing with the sewer an example of what happens when you don't put money aside. And I'm not even suggesting we come close to budgeting for depreciation, but we're at a surplus of 23,000. I think it's a misnomer to call it a surplus. It's something that we should be starting to budget for depreciation. Down the road, it may actually become a requirement where we have to start budgeting for depreciation. And we see when we get to the sewer treatment plant, what happens when we don't do that. We had several years of 0% increases with sewer. And now the unfortunate residents of Kelvin Grove are in a position where they're paying for an asset that they should have had enough money for. And now we have to start taxing for replacement of the future asset. And we'll talk about that more with sewer, but that would be the only comment I made. Like, with respect, I do appreciate that, it is hard to pay our taxes and our water rates, but I think we've been showing historically what happens when we don't start putting enough money aside for future replacement of assets.
Okay, and thank you for that, CFO Rook. Councillor Abbott, you're substantially asking for a zero budget. Lacking a better word, is that fair?
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute. Yes, that's true. And what I'm suggesting, and let me just say it again, I'm a strong believer in us maintaining our infrastructure. I think this village has done poorly of that in previous years and in previous decades. And yes, we are paying the price. I think the world we live in last year and this year is not the world we expect to live in forever. I'm not suggesting we would do this going forward forever. I'm suggesting this is the time, this is the year. Just tighten the belts and do cover the operating costs, obviously, but let's not be adding to the coffers. I just think we should give people a break this year.
Thank you very much. And just to recap, and Carl, I'd like this on the point then. So back to the zero budget, I'm talking about the revenue piece here. I'm sure you accept that expenditures are expenditures. So the substantive part of the revenue growth is the 3%. The rest are very small numbers or negative. So that is your piece that you're focused on.
Yes.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, let's hold that because, eyeballing it quickly, going from the top of the page to the bottom, the 27%, $28,000, 3% increase more or less equals the bottom line here. So I think if everyone's fine with it, we'll have Councillor Abbott's comments in our agenda, and then we'll go to vote on the 3 readings. Next week it's recorded and we'll bring it up again. If you're fine with that, Councillor Abbott, we'll move to the next subject on the budget.
I do need some guidance on how to prepare the bylaws. So am I preparing the bylaws with what rate? I mean, I do need that in this meeting because I'm coming to the next meeting with the bylaws. There will be a chance to change them, but I do need to come with the bylaws. So I do need guidance on what to set the rate at with the bylaws.
Well, so Councillor Abbott, the choices are either 0 or 3. I've got that right, CFO?
Yes,
Uh,
or any range, higher, lower, in between, anything council wants. But I need guidance for the,
Well, okay, I get that, but I mean, I want to give Councillor Abbott the last chance next week. Councillor Abbott, in terms of direction for staff, it's either 0 or 3. I'm going to give you a piece on this one because staff's looking for something to come forward that we can discuss with. So if you're fine with 3 and we have the full discussion, or 0, and I'd be happy to put that forward as a discussion point, knowing that your colleagues are leaning towards a higher number. What's your advice, sir?
I made an appeal for 0. I'd like to know if any of my colleagues listening to what I said would like to reconsider or change their minds.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. To my colleagues, 3 of you have said that the budget, again, focusing on the key numbers of 3%. I'd like each of you to go through again. It's either 0 or 3 as guidance. Knowing that we're going to have a discussion next council meeting, it'll be much briefer than this, but I think and I'll go to you, the CAO in just a second. Actually, we'll go to you first, and then I'll do this with the council members one more time. It's an important piece, so I don't mind going through this a couple of times. CAO?
I was going to ask what the 3% increase equates to, but I see it now in note 1. It's $50 over the 2020 rate. Sorry.
We're good, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Cunliffe, you're first up again. I hate to do this to you, 0 or 3.
I'm happy to keep it at 3 and have a discussion next week. I do feel that, budgeting for the future is important, and $50, I feel, out of all of the expenses is rather modest.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barmer, 0 or 3.
Yeah, I made it pretty, I'm looking to support the asset management plan, and we got to start doing something. And I think Pam made it clear that 3 is absolutely minimum.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Thank you. Councillor Bain.
Well, I take Councillor Abbott's points to heart. I do care about the people, but we've got payroll to meet as well. Our employees need to be paid, and their rates are going up. So I'd stay at 3.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott, I'm going to recommend that the staff use 3% as the modeling, but I'm going to ask you to bring this up again on the 0 and stick right to the piece, and we'll get right to it. You'll be the lead speaker next time up, if you're fine with that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. CFO, the next piece. Who loves solid waste more than you do?
I think the solid waste budget, it's fairly straightforward. It's just basically a recovery of our costs, which are our waste removal contract. And those costs are increasing 3% this year to cover an increase in Metro Vancouver disposal costs. Actually, overall, those costs went up 4%, but Waste Control was able to keep it to 3% for Lions Bay, partially given our size. So this is just an across the board 3% increase to reflect the increase in the costs that we have. So the 3% increase in the user rates would equate to an $11 increase over the 2020 rates.
There we go. Again, we split this out as for receiving, but staff's looking for guidance on this one. I think we've started with Councillor Cunliffe. Let's do the reverse. Councillor Abbott, any questions on this? Pretty straightforward page.
Just kind of observation. Any idea why the green waste contract was down this year? It seems a bit of a anomaly.
Yes. It was down because, so I should have made a comment on that. We were told that the costs last year were going to stay flat except for the green contract, and they were supposed to go up 3%, which I budgeted for and I subsequently taxed for. And then Waste Control was able to absorb the cost after we had sent out the utility rates, so the cost didn't go up. So the advantage of that is we had a little bit of a surplus and we used a lot of it because of extra collection. I mean, in the budget, I do have weekly collection in the summer because it's something that garbage collection, it's something we find we need. But we did have some additional collection. So although this budget is showing a bit of a surplus, again, that's a surplus that we could use throughout the summer if occasionally we get calls for extra garbage collection. So that's why the green contract looks a bit funny. An actual increase didn't occur.
Good enough. Any other questions, Councillor Abbott?
No, but just to my earlier points, and this is one where it's pretty clear, this is all sort of operating costs. And, you know, I assume the actual year to date was the end of the year, but I guess if you're going to tell me there's one more month in it.
No, this actually is complete. We say it year to date, there might be some small minor changes, but all of the costs are in there because our only cost is waste control and the December costs are in here.
So they substantially
Substantially year to date.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, substantially actual 2020.
Okay, so Councillor Abbott.
So in that case, when you use the actuals, you aren't increasing it by 3%, you're increasing it by more than double that. Because if the actuals are real and you budgeted on actuals, right, and even if you did add 3% to 192,000, you're going to be a lot less than what your current budget is.
Mm-hmm. I based it on what the December 2020 bill was, the actual bill, and I increased that by 3% because those rates are going up 3%. So
okay.
It's just about a $200 difference in the recycling. I've explained what the green was and just a little bit more in the collection because we estimate the extra garbage pickup in the summer. So I might have been off with that a bit, but the actual in the budget is pretty close. The 2020 budget and the 2020 actual are very close, but the 2021 budget was based on the December cost, December 2020, and I increased it 3%, which is what the rates are going up.
Okay.
So to recap, the 201,000 pretty much is the real number to cover the cost. Yes, sorry, digress. Okay, I think Councillor Abbott, your key piece here is that you'd like this to be 0 versus 11. So your theme would be the same as the last section.
Well, as I said, operating costs should be covered. So I didn't do the math where Pam does. I thought we'd done it budget on budget, but if it's done on actuals and we are only covering operating costs, then I would agree to the $11 increase. I'm not suggesting we don't cover our operating costs. So okay. I'll keep to my 0 on other budgeting items, but on this one, the logic would dictate, yes, we go with the 3%.
There's no more revision of numbers as your CFO. They're not going to change, are they? No. Okay, so just again, I've just asked the CFO, these numbers aren't going to change. So again, it's whether we want this modest increase or not is the ultimate piece. I'm going to keep going through. We've got a bigger issue to come up with next. Councillor Bain, your thoughts?
Here again, I appreciate the logic on it, and feel like we got to pay our bills as they go up. So I'm fine with the 3.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bormeier, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm fine with the waste budget.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunliffe?
Agreed.
Thank you. I think what I would propose on behalf of staff is on behalf of council to staff is to use the current modeling. Again, as with the previous one, Councillor Abbott will be the lead speaker for change at the next meeting, if that's fine with you, Councillor Abbott. Thank you. Last piece. If you like solid waste, you're going to love sewer. CFO.
Okay. Sewer. Again, we've come down to a surplus of 14,000 compared to the amortization of the 36,000. So at least we're partially covering under this proposed budget some of the amortization. the future amortization of that 28,750 a year will be for the new sewer treatment plant, which has a life of 40 years. And there's really only two assets in sewer. There's the sewer mains and the treatment plant, which we've just replaced. So the sewer mains currently have a replacement value of $1 million, actually $1,050,000. They originally had a remaining useful life of 9 years, but when we did our asset management plan, Public Works felt, given the conditions of the water mains, that we could add 10 years to that. So there's 19 years left on that. But that's another huge number that's coming towards us with regard to the sewer budget, is the future replacement of the water mains. So again, that's why I'm recommending that we start trying to budget for depreciation. To put it in perspective, we'd have to put aside $55,000 a year over the next 20 years to have enough money to replace the sewer mains, which clearly we can't do with user fees. So it's something we'll have to address for other means of obtaining revenue. And I think that was all I had. Just any questions?
There you go, colleagues, any questions? Let's go direct. Councillor Abbott, you're unmuted. Do you have one?
No, I don't. Maybe it's a bit of a comment. Obviously, this more difficult to look at this with the new plant coming in, and there's big swings on maintenance. And I guess each question would can be explained by the fact that we have a new plant. So we seem to be budgeting this year for operating $102,000 less than $160,000. So we've accepted that it's going to cost less to run with the new plant. But once again, the residents of Calvin Grove, as per my earlier statement, not only have this and any potential increases, but depending on what we decide tonight, they may have a very large one-time bill, or they may have a bill every year for the next foreseeable future. So I think we should maybe circle back on this once we've decided how the new plant's getting paid for, and not make any decisions on how and what increases we should do, because I think it does impact into what we decide to do here.
I'll hand it over to my colleagues, and we'll go to Councillors Bain, Barmayer, and Cunliffe on this one. But I think the bigger topic is following. This one's very small in the comparison. I think I would be, for me, leaning towards the budget as it is. And let's see where we go with the next one. Councillor Bain.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one. I think the big hit that the the sewage treatment plant people are going to be hit with would tend to make me want to be more lenient. But so what do? Do we cut back a little bit for this year and give them some grace and only have to come back even more next year? Or should we keep it sort of on a steady incline so that in the long run, it's not quite so much of an impact? So yeah, hard to say, but I still want to keep it in 3% and have a look at it in the next meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barmayer.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to create some context here. So Pam, you were saying that right now we show a transfer to sewer surplus of 14,614 roughly under the current projected budget.
Yes.
Which is a shortfall of 35,000 or 40,000 to achieve a 20-year replacement of the sewer lines.
Yes, and that's that's without putting any aside for the future replacement of the sewer treatment plant. Like based on historical costs, the amortization is 36,180. I had just wanted to have that aside that there's these two main assets, and we have another asset in sewer that will have to be replaced in 20 years.
So what would the total look like if you were planning also for sewer plant replacement? Just roughly.
It would be 55 plus 29.
Okay.
Which,
so more like,
I mean, it isn't possible with sewer user rates.
right. Okay.
Key question, Councillor.
Well, I
Barbieri.
guess the question in my mind is what's the longer term strategy here? Is it meant to just be captured under the AMIP umbrella and like continuing to talk about it, or how do we communicate that shortfall? I mean, it's a big number, and or maybe it's not a big number. If you look at how much a septic system costs to replace for people living off this grid, what is that? Is that a $30,000, $40,000 replacement every 20 years? We just have to create some perspective, I think, and do some more communication around this. And I don't know if that really helps. It doesn't really answer the question right now about a 3% increase, but given the onslaught of bills on Calvin Grove, maybe 3% right now isn't the right thing to do. Maybe we need to kind of hamper that a bit.
There you go. Councillor Cunliffe, could you weigh in on this one?
I'm going to echo Norm's sentiment there on communication around replacement of these assets in the long term. Clearly, it came to a surprise of many residents of Calvin Grove that we were solely on the hook for the replacement of the treatment plant. That being said, it is what it is. And I think 3% is, something that just needs to be done. We need to establish some sort of precedent of saving for the replacement of our assets. So I'm happy to go ahead with 3%.
Thank you very much. And I'll conclude on this. Reflecting the majority of the councillors, the guidance is the 3%. I think that because it is coming back next meeting after the discussion that follows, I think that would probably be the time to rattle out some of these sundry fees, either maintaining the 3 or get closer to 0 on these 3 issues. And I think the amortization piece in the longer term is something that council is going to deal with. My personal view is I recommend we give the KGers a holiday for a year to let this sort out on the amortization piece. And that would be my suggestion. Unless somebody hardly disagrees with what I just said, Councillor Abbott.
Well, interestingly, what you just said. So if you ignored the amortization piece, there's a 36% decrease in operating costs. Are you suggesting 0 or minus 36?
I think that
you're suggesting not minus 36.
I'm of two minds, but I have my eye on our agenda and where we're trying to go. And the CFO is looking to get guidance so that she can come back with readings. So at this point, we kind of cut to the quick. The majority of council is in favor of the 3. You voiced the one closer to cost, and that's fine. I get it. I really do. But I think our discussion on the next topic is probably going to drive a lot of that. So I'd be happy to revisit this again next week at the next council meeting, if you're fine with that.
Yep, agreed.
Thank you very much. CFO, you've got your guidance.
Sorry, I'm not clear on what the guidance is for the
for the 3 separate categories.
for the sewer.
For the 3 categories that we've talked about.
Just the sewer. I just
just the sewer 3. Okay. So for clarity on this, I'll just go back. So the motion and the second was that the report's being received for information purposes. The dialogue's been noted. And I'll call a motion in a second and then ask that all of us.
Sorry, Ron, I do apologize. I just flicked down my notes and there was one other question on this that I forgot to ask. A gearbox, buying a backup gearbox. Surely now we're still in the warranty period. Why would we spend 20,000 on a backup gearbox in the first year? Surely it's under warranty.
Public Works Manager.
Point number 9 in Pam's notes.
Yeah, that's correct. So the existing gearbox, the brand new one that was installed, failed. It had a faulty bearing in it. We negotiated replacement of that with a brand new gearbox. The concern is that the gearbox takes almost 3 to 6 months to arrive. And if we have a problem with the gearbox, we have to ship it out to Delta to have it looked at and repaired. During that time, we'll be without the plant operating. So it makes sense to have a gearbox that we can slip in place while the other one's being repaired.
Is it selectively just the gearbox, or do you have other spare mechanical components or installed spares?
The other components are readily available, not like the gearbox, and the gearbox would result in a shutdown of the plant and lead to possible fines through MOE.
Okay. But we do have a warranty on the existing gearbox.
That's correct, yes. However, the repair time is the big crunch here. Having to remove the gearbox, send it away, have it repaired.
Okay. And there's no LD damages clauses in the contract, I guess. Okay.
Thank you very much. Then just to recap, I will call a motion. All those in favor with the recommendation, ayes, nays, opposed.
Aye.
Okay, majority has it. Thank you. Next up, and this is the biggie for today.
Sorry, did my vote get recorded as an A? I wasn't quite sure. I think we spoke at the same time.
Sorry,
Did
Councillor.
my vote get recorded as an A? You said the majority has it. Did my vote get recorded as an A? Or was it?
Now.
It is now. Thank you. So this is the CFO request for decision. This is not an information report. Under the topic Kelvin Grove Wastewater Treatment Plant Financing Options. And you can find it on page 131 of the packages. And staff recommendation is that council approve levying a parcel tax on all owners of lots that are or can be connected to the new Kelvin Grove Wastewater Treatment Plant based on a unit rate, and that the parcel tax be repaid over a term of 10 years. The CFO's done some mathematics for us, and I think the math is pretty simple if you want to deviate from that. So I'm going to put that forward as a motion. Won't reveal my opinion just yet, but I would like to get it into play. I'd like a second, and then I'm going to go to the CFO and ask for her verbatim on this.
Sorry, before we go any further, I think Councillor Cunliffe wanted to.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know if we were going to call the motion first, but I will recuse myself from this decision as it is in a pecuniary interest to me. My question is procedural. Shall I actually sign out or just remain on mute and not weigh in?
My understanding from the coordinator is that we'd ask that you sign off, and I will text you when we're done, and then you could come back in.
Will the same invitation will work?
Correct? Yes.
Yeah.
And CAO, do you concur with the reason for leaving?
Yep.
Thank you. We'll see you in a little bit, Councillor Cunliffe.
All right. See you shortly.
Okay, so I read the motion. I can't recall if I saw a second, but I just stopped. Can I have a second? And we'll go to discussion. Thank you, Councillor Abbott. CFO?
No. Sorry.
No.
It's
It's your report.
It's my report. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. I don't have a lot to say. Staff have recommended a parcel tax to be paid over a period of 10 years. It's really just a follow through of the information that was provided in the December 15th, 2020 report, which is attached. Just for a variety of reasons, a very large amount to repay. So we were going to recommend 10 years. And we feel that the parcel tax is much fairer because we can tax all parcels, including vacant lots, because the argument is that a vacant lot still has an advantage because it has an ability to be able to be hooked up to the sewer treatment plant. And we're recommending a flat rate parcel tax because that is similar to the way in which we, because we don't have meters, that's how we invoice the user fees as well. So I think it's really over to council to debate.
Thank you very much. And if I may lead on this one this time.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, through the chair, if I may. So there was 5, other than people that spoke tonight, and some of them did also send in, there was 5 pieces of correspondence relating to this. Would it be appropriate for me to read them and recap them now so everyone, and we don't have to deal with them later?
I'm sure all of council read them.
Or if all of council are happy they've read them, we can leave it for later, that's fine. Just want to make sure the public are aware we have received and all.
Thank you. My preference, Councillor Abbott, is that you do not read them, and we've had some come on in the public opportunities or in correspondence over the last couple of weeks. So I would be fine if you acknowledge that 5 members, I think if that's the number, 5 have written in with their different points of view, and we acknowledge them.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, yeah, I can confirm there was 5. And then just one other point of interest. I personally have not seen this letter. Can we have a recap on what the letter actually said that was sent to the residents?
Oh, I guess I could have.
CFO, do you have the letter?
I did copy council on it.
That's-
Apologize.
I know I saw it. I didn't.
Yeah, I did forward it to council. Yeah, I could have attached to this. I apologize. It was basically advising everyone, test of my memory, that the wastewater treatment plant was near completion, and that I would be bringing this report to council, recommending with a recommendation about a parcel tax or a sewer user fee, and just going over the financial components of what the different costs would be for the taxpayers. So it's really just an information letter advising them about what was coming to this meeting.
Okay.
And then providing an opportunity for feedback, and we did receive, I received some directly, which I put into correspondence, and some went directly to correspondence.
Sorry, I just forwarded your email that was sent to council.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so just fast breaking. The coordinator has just sent to your councillor IDs the letter, so you can refer to it as our discussion is going on. So I think where we left it is we've motioned, we've seconded, Councillor Abbott had brought his point, and I requested I would go first. Thank you very much, CFO, for this, for your work at the last meeting and this one too. I'm of the view that if a resident outside of the Kelvin Grove had to replace the roof or their septic tank or their septic field, it's the owner's responsibility to do that. I think that it's a benefit to the Kelvin Grove folks to have a wastewater plant, and it's their obligation to maintain it. I believe the secondary piece in most other situations, whether it's in personal situations or whether you're part of a strata or other communities, cash calls are not an abnormal part of life. And that's just simply what it is. I think we've been very straightforward with the residents of Kelvin Grove as to what occurred, what the finances were, and what was likely going to become this day. And we now are at that day. I don't see the municipality as having to perform a banking function for this sector, that is the Kelvin Grove residents. When given the situation I gave you about septic tanks and septic fields, everybody else is left on their own. I'm also of the view, and CFO, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but approximately 18 to 20% of our population defer their taxes, and this would qualify for that. Mm-hmm. That's correct, thank you. So I think that all that being said, I am entirely in favor of a parcel tax versus the user. But I believe that this has been a very unique situation, and it requires the councillors to put their thinking hats on here too. The price tag round numbers is $1 million for 100 homes, so we can get the math pretty easily. And I think I recognize that's a big number if everybody gets it. the village is in a very unique position right now through a combination of things that is partially done through the work of this council and through the work of our staff. The essence of my discussion with the CFO over many sessions on this is that in fact, villagers can support our residents here. And I will be suggesting that we accept a 10-year period. We can internally finance this at a very nominal interest rate and get this repaid, assuming the math works out, the 20% defer, probably a not dissimilar number, we'll simply write a check. So to those who may prefer not to go to their private lending institution or wherever they go, I think that we can extend our largesse for a period, knowing that it's getting repaid at something, if 40% prepaid, that we're getting repaid over a substantially 6-year period. So I'm in favor of a 10-year AM on this because we're internal borrowing and can help each other. And I believe that is what is the spirit of the village. That's my comment. To the councillors, I'm going to say this. There are 4 of us. A split vote does not leave us in good standing. So we will come out with a decision tonight. So I think about what you have to say and where you'd like to go. So we'll shake it up a bit, and I'm going to screen to the middle, which is Councillor Barmayer to me, and then Councillor Abbott to the right, and Councillor Bain to close.
So are we saying the 10-year amortization is the longest term we can do as a municipality?
I defer to the CFO.
No, we could do longer.
Okay. Would it make sense to do it over the lifetime of the plant if there's a projected lifetime?
My only concern with that is it's the internal borrowing and our reserves are low. So there's an advantage to getting repaid faster because we may need that money for other things. As we've seen from the asset management plan, we have shortfalls, large amount of assets that are beyond their useful life. And if there was a failure, until we build up our reserves, right now I would be reluctant to tie up that much money from reserves for that period of time. Plus then we're lapping into, this is a repayment really of the money we should have put aside for this wastewater, for the new wastewater treatment plant. But now we have to, over the next 40 years, put aside enough money to replace it when it fails. So if we were to do that, we're sort of lapping ourselves, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I think the key piece for me, Councillor Barmayer, is that, I mean, I get the deal, I get the amount, I get the people that are impacted, but thinking as the village as a whole, if we were fortunate enough to grab 4 years in a row, significant grants that required our cash in, it'd be much easier to do our internal borrowing rather than our line of credit. And that would be the prudent deal. And I'd hate to have us go borrowing or be short because we extended for a longer period. So I think 10 years is kind of my generosity period.
Okay. Yeah, I'd have to defer to your recommendation, Pam.
Thank you. Councillor
Abbott? Just a couple of points of clarity. So these numbers are all before interest. So what is it? Is it going to be left as an option for the residents of Kelvin Grove to pay one lump sum payment without interest, and others to pay it over time?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not one size fits all.
No, so basically, when we do the parcel tax bylaw, you have the option of paying everything up front in a lump sum or paying over 10 years with interest. And the interest we charge is the interest that we would currently be earning on the reserve. And because interest rates are so low, that's right now only between 1% and 1.5%. So the interest rate, that's about what the interest rate would be. So it'd be a low rate of interest.
So Councillor Abbott, the 3 options are: you get your tax bill, you write the check and say that's the end of it, and the plant is part of parcel tax, part of your tax bill. It's option 1. Number 2 is that you defer your taxes, and that's the end of that. It's the same as option number 1, you just pay later. Option number 3 is as if recommended, a 10-year AM, round numbers as suggested, 10 grand, and an interest rate somewhere between 1 and 1.5.
Okay. So the interest rate calculation starts next year, or it starts when we, as the rest of the village, or everyone in the village, should I say, it's not differentiate, put forward the money for the plan? So interest rate calculation starts last year at time of purchase?
No, it would start at the time, it has to be over the length of the parcel tax, so it would be over 10 years.
Okay.
So from the time the parcel tax starts to the time it's repaid.
Okay. So general revenues are paying for the current interest, was what I'm saying, it's already been paid out.
No, we're actually taking the money from the restricted reserve. Yes, like
Okay.
that's the board. So yes, we're basically, there's an interest-free period while we paid for it, and then we'll implement the parcel tax.
Yeah, so it's a direct internal borrow.
Okay, so it's interest-free until we implement the parcel tax. And then just to get clarity on the question, so if I decided the first year that I was going in with whatever the term was and paying it over time, but 2 years later had a bit more money, I mean, each year the ones that are people that still haven't paid would be given an option. If you pay it now, it's X. If you keep going, it's another 8 installments of Y. Is that how it would work? Or once
No.
you bought into 10 years, you're hooked into 10 years?
Exactly. Once we set the parcel tax roll and the parcel tax bylaw, you're locked in, but ahead of time, you have the option of paying it all up front. But you just have that, there's just a one-time opportunity to pay it all in a lump sum, and then you're on the parcel tax.
So this would either be through a windfall or a sale of the property?
And so,
The one-time, always,
No,
what happens when somebody sells their home then?
then it stays with the property, so the new owners continue to pay. Because there's currently a parcel tax in Brunswick Beach,
Okay.
and it just transfers to the new owner.
Councillor Abbott, did you hear that? It stays with the new owner?
Yes, I heard that. And then one last question. If someone creates an additional lot in the near future, in the 10 years, and what happens then?
Then the parcel roll is revised because we have an additional roll. So I don't know the exact legalities of how to do that. The CIO might know, but basically if there is a new lot created, then that parcel tax is spread out over, it would change for the subsequent years.
But the people that have already paid the lump sum, I think someone you're going to send them some money back?
No, I don't believe so.
It's a good question, though. One that
It is, yeah, we need to look into that.
make note of.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just don't know what happens to the lump sum. I know what happens to the people that are paying annually. And then which case it's spread over an even larger amount. But yeah, in terms of what happens, it might be just a gamble you take if you pay up front. I mean, I don't know how much, yeah. It's lower interest rates, so that can impact your decision to pay up front.
Okay. All right. Well, I believe if the residents that choose to pay it over time, are paying the interest and paying what it's costing us, then we should give them that option to pay it over time.
Amortization period, sir?
10.
Thank you. Any further comments before I go to Councillor Bean? Councillor Bean, you're up.
Yeah, I think we've studied this thing very well, and I think the CFO has done an excellent job of articulating the challenges and benefits, or one way or the other. I think the flexibility in there should make adjustments or allowances for people with difficulties, hopefully. But these things never come at a handy moment, and right now it seems to be a tough time to having a sewage treatment plant breakdown, but that wasn't really in it for us. So I think the CFO's recommendation is about the best we're going to get, and I commend her for such a lot of work that was done to get us here.
And thank you. And on that theme, Councillor Bain, also to the rest of staff, and especially the Public Works Manager for his diligence and hard work on getting this thing operational. Thank you very much, Public Works Manager, and to the rest of staff. Thank you. Any last comments? I'll call the motion in a second. There being none, I will call a motion. All in favor of the motion as put forward. Ayes, nays opposed, please.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, thank you. 1 second, we'll pause. I'll invite Councillor Cunliffe back in. Carla, can you tell me when she's back in? Thank you. Okay, and while we're waiting for Councillor Cunliffe to come in, CFO and staff, will you be putting something in the village update? Yes, please. Thank you. Both on the guidance on the water, waste, and sewer, and also on the KG issue too. Please, thank you.
Perhaps I could also comment at this time, just a heads up that part of the process, as you know, as you heard, involves creating a parcel tax roll, and that will be directed by the new bylaw. Another aspect of it will be the creation of a parcel tax roll review panel. And that is a panel of 3 members, generally council members, that is appointed to review any complaints or appeals with respect to very limited bases as set out in the statute with respect to the parcel tax rule. So we'll bring more information for that on February 9th, but just a heads up that that will be another aspect of this that we'll be looking to have council appoint 3 members to that panel as well.
Thank you very much, Sheehan. Okay, Councillor Cunliffe, you're in, and we need you because you're going to be a big piece of the next area of discussion, which is the request for a decision on the Climate Action Committee terms and reference. I'll just go through the quick recommendation and then ask one of staff to walk us through this. So the staff recommendation is that council establishes the Climate Action Committee and that council approves the terms of reference for the Climate Action Committee and that council directs staff to publish a call for expression of interest in the village update. I'll put forward that motion. Can I have a hand as a seconder, please? Thank you. And we'll go to discussion. Actually, before we go to discussion, sorry, I'm not sure which is the staff representative. Peter?
So I'll speak to this, as you can see from the report. Carla pulled this together. Thank you, Carla. And so what we've got is terms of reference, which provide for a select committee of council. The suggestion being there be 2 members of council and up to 5 members at large from the community. And a lot of the terms are sort of generic there. Committee role and responsibility is sort of the meat and potatoes of the raison d'etre of the committee. So what you see there is specific responsibilities of the committee, including all of those bulleted points. Looking to provide council with recommendations on innovative approaches and other means at a local level of mitigating and adapting to climate change and reducing GHGs, as well as all the other points that are listed. The balance of the terms of reference references the basic governance provisions that are fairly standard, but certainly open for discussion. Why don't I stop there?
Thank you very much. I deferred a bit to Councillor Cunliffe, who I would like to chair this committee, and I would ask that she would. That's one of the topics of discussion. Councillor Cunliffe, why don't I hand to you and you give us your thoughts on this and we'll go through some questions.
Thank you, Mayor McLaughlin. Yes, I accept and would be happy to chair the committee and or look at a co-chair. I did speak with Councillor Barmeyer. I'm not sure if he wants to be in a co-chair position, but if I don't speak out of term, he did confirm he would be willing to be a second council member on the committee. My question is that I might like to have an amendment to the 5 members at large being residents to be a bit more of a fluid number until we do put a call out to the community on a whole and see whom we do have apply. I see this as an opportunity to have a committee with potentially subcommittees, and therefore maybe more members would be better depending on what we are trying to accomplish at any given particular time. Outside of that, I think the terms of reference are reasonable and fairly straightforward to other council or other committees in the village.
If I could, through the chair, perhaps what we could do is, have whatever further discussion with respect to the terms of reference, but on the basis of Councillor Cunliffe's suggestion about keeping the total numbers fluid until we see what response is like on a request for expressions of interest to be on the committee. Perhaps we don't put the terms of reference to a vote tonight. There will be obviously a requirement to bring in the matter back for appointment of members who put their best foot forward. And at that time, council can adopt the terms of reference and set at that time the number that the committee shall be comprised of. Just a suggestion.
I'm fine. Councillor Abbott.
Sorry, just had to unmute. Well, Councillor Cunliffe is going to chair this. I mean, her opinion is probably sort of carries most weight, and I probably want to support that. I do think we've waited a long time for this to happen, though, and I really think it needs to get going and gain some momentum. It's taken a while. I don't really think we should be waiting for another meeting. Surely we can approve the terms of reference, and if we're unsure of a number, we can always slot that in afterwards. I just don't see why we should wait for another meeting. I do have a couple of other questions and observations having read the terms of reference. It talks about the council member who's holding sustainability and climate change adaptation mitigation portfolio will serve as the committee chair. I don't know that we have that portfolio. Certainly never heard it referred to, but I assume we are agreeing that that is Councillor Cunliffe. It also says in the next point that the committee will appoint a vice chair from among its members, which I'm not sure whether that's what we heard earlier. Thought we were suggesting that Councillor Barmeyer would be the vice chair, or her co-chair mentioned, to get some clarity on that. A few lines below it actually says the committee members through the city's municipal coordinator. I think we're a village, not a city, so we should probably make that change as well. And then on the last point, or the second last sentence, it says, at the discretion of the Chief Administration Officer, the committee will be provided with professional staff, communication and technical expertise. I would like to add or suggest that we add in there after Chief Administrator or at direction of Council. I just would like to be in a situation where Council think the committee should get some support, and maybe, and I'm not suggesting we would be at odds with the CEO, but the way it's written, it certainly is a possibility.
Yep.
Good point. Thank you.
Councillor Cunliffe, what do you feel about proceeding on the terms of reference today versus next council meeting?
I'm happy to proceed today as long as we can amend so that just those numbers aren't solid this evening. And when it goes to appointing a vice chair, depending on, we haven't heard from Councillor Barmeyer, but we also haven't seen who might have put their names forward to be part of this committee. And there could be somebody that might be in a better position and have more to offer. So I would just want to make those decisions after we have gathered interest from residents.
Okay. Then I will go to Councillor Barmeyer and Councillor Bainey just a second. So in terms of a soft amendment to what we have here without going through everything, relative to the 5 members, I think Councillor Cunliffe, you're not stuck on that number. In fact, you're thinking higher. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yes. So I would suggest that we not have the 5 in this. And again, this is a friendly amendment. I think we've dealt with the chair and that will finalize that. I too am keen that this goes to the community. And we'll get right to it with our other 2 colleagues. My only other piece on this is that with respect to and this is for lack of a better place, I'll put this on page 139, the bottom bunch of bullet points, the first one about greenhouse emissions reduction plan. Somewhere in this, I'm not stuck on it being included in there, I'll just make the mention. We need to deal with including wood burning devices. I think there were folks that have a strong climate action view, and I think council is going to have to make a call where we want to go with climate action relative to wood burning devices. So I would defer to the committee on this one. Would you be fine with that, Councillor Cunliffe?
Sure.
It's still, I view it as a work in progress, and I was going to suggest that and I'll go to the CAO in a second. I was going to suggest that we accept this as the draft terms of reference that we were accepting, revision to come when we see the applicants come in.
Yes, and the only thing I would like to add in regards to wood burning is we did have our presentation from Metro in regards to our position in the urban containment boundary. And I do feel that that is a conversation that is still fluid and extensive, and therefore could affect where we go from here on the climate action portion of it. But if we could have that come from the committee, I'm comfortable with that.
Good. I think those are works in progress. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. So I was using the electronic hand. I'm not sure if anyone's watching that. I was going back and forward. One other, I'll just get back to the wood burning thing in 1 second, but another thought I had, I think, under the roles of the committee, I would like to see something about supporting the villagers' obligations on reporting, environmental reporting, specifically the CARET report. I think that should be a key function of this committee to improve that reporting. I'm not sure where the wood burning thing fits in with the committee, and I'm struggling to see this committee on the urban containment boundary. I think that discussion is I mean, everything has a climate action component, and I do believe that this committee should be able to provide input on all our decisions from the climate point of view. But I don't think either the wood burning or certainly not the urban containment discussion rests at this committee.
Sorry, if I could interject, Neville, I think there was a miscommunication. I wasn't suggesting that the Climate Action Committee would provide guidance. We would use the decision by council on those, especially the urban containment boundary, to influence perhaps our direction and maybe recommendations on wood burning, but definitely not suggesting that we would be the one to steer the helm there.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then just on one last point before you go to read, I noticed the CEO put his thumbs up when I suggested adding or just at the direction of council in that last paragraph. So that will be one of the amendments.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Barmer.
Yeah, I can lower my hand here. I guess I hate to be presumptuous, but I kind of always assumed I was going to be co-chairing with Councillor Cunliffe. So I just wanted to make that clear, maybe restate that ambition. You know, we've been pressing for some GHG reduction since the spring of 2019. So for almost 2 years, we've been pursuing a relatively important initiative on that front, regardless of the committee being in place. So yeah, I just thought that would naturally roll over.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bain?
I really don't have anything to add. I think it's all been said already.
Thank you very much. So to what we have here was that as we've done the motion and had been seconded, had the discussion, the desire is to move this out, which would be attached to as an attachment to the call out to the public. I'm fine with it, us progressing to a vote on this one, subject to the final amendments when we gather next. I'm not sure that, yes, CAO?
So I think if you want to adopt it with the amendments that we talked about, but you need to have a number, stick with the number that's in here now. And then depending on what you get in terms of interest, you can always amend the number next meeting, but adopt the terms of reference with the amendments we've talked about, and then put out the expression of interest call, and if necessary, amend next time.
There we go. It's fine with me. Councillor Cunliffe, you're good with that?
Yeah, sounds good.
There you go. Colleagues, if you disagree, raise your hand, and otherwise I'll go to calling the motion in a minute.
Sorry, one thing that's left open in here is the term. Members shall be appointed by council resolution to a term expiring on blank. I'm not sure
2 years
for that, but possibly one suggestion would be to run it to the end of council's term. So November of 2022.
Either that or 2 years. Okay. Let's go to council term. All right. If there's no other feedback, discussion, or points, I'll call a motion. All in favor? Ayes, nays, opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Councillor Barmer, you're good. Thank you. Thank you both, Councillors Cunliffe and Barmer, for volunteering for this very unique and interesting meeting. Okay, and that concludes that little piece. And just as a quick update, which was item number A9, and that was from the Public Works Manager on the Beach Park piece that you and I spoke about today.
Yeah, so annually we remove the log booms at the Lions Bay Beach Park. This year we left the log booms in. It costs us $6,000 approximately annually. And the idea was to repair the booms, and the thought was that that would cost less than removal and storage. So we'll see what happens in the spring before we put out the boom and the float.
Thank you very much. So this was brought about so frequently at the marina. I can see the boom has split in half. The seas have been calm since Thursday. And I drew this to the Public Works Manager's attention. So this is just for information. Thank you very much. Any comments? And we'll move on, or if not, we'll move on. There being none, thank you. Next piece was the Lions Bay Fire and Rescue Service level.
Charger. This point
Item 8. the verbal update, EV charger.
Sorry, thank you. I apologize, Public Works Manager. So you're up again with the update on the EV charger RFP process.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have prepared an RFQ, a request for qualifications, that we hope to get out this week. Councillor Balmer is reviewing and the CAO are reviewing, and once that's done, we'll put it out this week.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barmer, anything else to add?
No, I appreciate Nye jumping on this. It's I think this will set us up really well. Thanks, Nye.
Okay, all good. Moving on. Now we are at the Lions Bay Fire and Rescue Service level.
Okay, so this report is a result of further discussion between myself and the fire chief. A little further digging, a little communication back from the LBFR membership, and some additional checking with the Office of the Fire Commissioner. So it turns out that we do actually have quite a few already qualified members. As you can see in the report that I sent late this afternoon, in terms of interior firefighting, interior firefighters, we have all of our pre-recruits have NFPA 1001, firefighter 1, and are qualified for interior. We have present 6 qualified interior team leader level people and 6 more going through the training. And we currently have 4 qualified incident commander level personnel and 8 more going through the training. So in my discussions with one of the deputy fire commissioners from the OFC, we talked about some of the, the way in which you determine service levels, and some of the wordings in the OFC playbook, so to speak, which is the BC minimum firefighter level training, or minimum training standards for all BC firefighters. It's actually, through that discussion, it was determined that we're actually better to go with the interior level fire service level. And obviously, just like any other interior fire department, if you don't have sufficient trained members present at a incident scene, you don't go in. If you don't have all of the requirements necessary by regulation and all of the things that you set out as your threshold requirements, then you don't go in. That's the same for any other professional department as well. So in terms of clarity of what the level of service is, and due to the fact that the department does have a high number of necessary qualified people and has been actively training to the interior service level, I note in the report the newly completed live fire training center, or burn building, is a key part of that program. So we're looking for an amendment, or basically a rescinding of the previous external level of service declaration, which provided for going interior in certain circumstances, provided all the necessary information or personnel were present. Asking council to rescind that declaration and adopt the new declaration, which has some wordings more appropriate to interior operations level, but still makes it very clear that if the requisite regulatory and operational guideline circumstances are not being met, then the department will not be going inside. In terms of financial considerations, as you know, fire protection services are not only vital, but they're expensive for all communities. The model adopted by the Village of Lions Bay requires a healthy contingent of pre-recruits that are already well on their way to full certification, and a strong training program to ensure that the members have capability and capacity to provide effective fire protection services for the village. So, you know, as the authority having jurisdiction, or AHJ, it is council who is responsible for determining the level of fire service to be provided to the municipality and its residents, and ensuring that the department has the resources necessary to meet the requirements of that service level. And that is the report. The previous declaration is there attached to it, as well as the draft new declaration for interior operations level of service. And I'll pause for questions.
Council colleagues, questions for the CAO?
I just had a quick question. Does that mean that, like, between November and now, the team has just increased in their qualifications? Is that the basic memo?
Not necessarily. I think that, you know, the conversation in terms of what the declaration was going to look like has been something that the fire chief and I have been talking about for quite a while. And so those conversations evolved over time, and we do have fluctuations in terms of the number of members we do have. Right now, we have a fairly high number of members. I think we've got about 35 at the moment. So it just a case, really, I think, of drilling down a bit deeper on it once it had been brought to council and went back to the membership, and further discussion as to why it was set up that way. Further discussion between the fire chief and myself, and it may be that, you know, I didn't ask the right questions. So if that's the case, then I'll certainly take the blame for that.
Thanks, Peter.
I guess I'll just talk. Are we using the electronic hands or not?
Either your real hand or the one at your screen. With my screen, I'm unable to see all the participants. Otherwise, it covers up the other one. So just, Oren, you speak.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Sorry, and I will use your hand because it's hard to see with so many people in there.
Okay, well, that's fine. I have been raising my hand, and that's fine. I'll take the hand down now. My first thought and question when I saw this was Andrew available to come to us? And it would be nice to have, well, the fire chief, it's calling by his official name, it would be nice to have had him in presence to discuss and give us his point of view.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been helpful. It was a push to get everything completed in time for this meeting. Part of that incentive also has to do with the requirements that we have in terms of interacting and communicating our level of service and our ability and capacity, as well as our costs, to the fire consultants who are working on the study for the potential provision of services to Ocean Point, Strachan Point, and Montezambert Wind. So there is a bit of a time crunch in terms of having the proper level of service declaration in hand in terms of that side of things as well.
Okay. But I see he has, well, according to the report, he has reviewed it. Has he actually seen the final version and signed off on it?
Yes. Yes, I've been back and forth with him numerous times today.
I think Councillor Bain is probably more knowledgeable and he has something to say, so I'll mute.
Councillor Bain?
CAO, I have to apologize. I didn't catch this back in November. I'm very well aware that the department is fully competent at an interior firefighting capability, and I just missed it. So I probably could have saved you a lot of work if I'd spoken up. So my apologies on that.
I certainly don't blame you, Councillor Bain.
Okay, I think before we opened it up, I think you put forward the recommendation, CAO?
No, I don't think I did. So the recommendation is that the declaration of fire service level dated November 17th, 2020 be rescinded, and that the declaration of fire service level dated January 19th, 2021 be approved.
Okay, I'll put forward that motion. Can I have a second, please? Thank you, Councillor Bain. Any further discussion, questions for the CAO?
Just for clarity, Peter, so Andrew is, you said yes, he's been back and forward. He has seen this and he signed off. He knows exactly what's in this, right?
Yes, he does. I'll just comment on what the last items that we were talking about was with respect to section 4, the second line where it talks about in the judgment of a qualified incident commander. And then previously it just said a qualified incident commander. And through our back and forth, we landed with the wording that you see there, which is in the judgment of a qualified incident commander and the fire chief, or the fire chief alone, or if the fire chief is unavailable, 2 qualified incident commanders. And then it continues, there are sufficient numbers of declared interior operations level firefighters to make the decision, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we did sort of have a discussion on that, and this was the wording that we arrived at. So he has seen the whole document and has agreed that it's good to go. He also saw the draft report.
Okay.
No, we're in some time crunch here, so I think we should go ahead. But I'm assuming it's a conditional approval that Andrew doesn't request another change. That's all.
No, but I mean, as is stated in the declaration, obviously, and as I've noted, our numbers do fluctuate. So if at any point in the future we don't have sufficiently trained personnel on hand, then it could be revisited by council if there's a decision that we just don't have enough members to maintain this level of service. However, I think that the program that we've got going now, the training that we've got going, and the level of training that is provided to the members makes it a very attractive program for young firefighters and others. And I would anticipate that we maintain this level of service going forward.
Colleagues, any more questions? There being none, I will call the motion. All those in favor of the motion as recommended? Ayes, nays opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much, CAO. And that takes us to the internal reports. The mayor has none. Councillor Abbott, you can get warmed up. You have one on the topic of correspondence. Please go, sir.
All right, I would just like to refer council to the background here just really quickly. In the strategic planning session, we had several pieces or quite a lot of correspondence from residents. In the meeting, we agreed that the mayor would respond to those pieces of correspondence, and he has done so. The mayor then informed us that he also copied agenda. I took that to mean it would be on the agenda package, but have now since been told that's not the case. And I asked the rest of my council members to support me in a direction that the council members would like to see those responses, as well as I would like to see them on the agenda. And if people see that differently, then please let me know. The CAO referred us to two policies. The first policy was 1405, which is our correspondence policy. And it says correspondence sent with direction from council, which is what this is, shall be sent by the person designated, in this case the mayor, and may be included in the regular agenda package subject to the CAO. Subject to CAO approval. And in this case, we told that did not get approval, so they weren't submitted. Well, they were copied to agenda, hence the confusion, but they will not be on the agenda package. The other piece of the other policy is the electronics communications policy 1401. This one has a clause that says electronic correspondence sent by a councillor of the village of Lions Bay shall be copied to all of council, as well as the CAO and their delegates. Just to let everyone understand, the mayor is not a councillor of the village of Lions Bay, he's a member of council. I looked up our definitions and it's written that way expressly to exclude the mayor from needing to do that. So my ask is to the rest of my council members that you support me in directing staff to show us or to send us a copy of those responses, and further that we include them on the agenda package.
Take that as a motion, Councillor Abbott?
Yes, you can take that as a motion.
Thank you very much. Just speak. Yes, CAO.
So just, I'd like to provide a bit of perspective on the matter. As Councillor Abbott's noted, the two policies in question, and I think it's clear that the mayor, the wording for section 7 of the electronic correspondence policy ought to read electronic correspondence sent by a member of council rather than just a councillor. But I think it's clear that it applies to all members of council, and that when emails are sent or correspondence replies are sent in response to correspondence that's come to the agenda, council goes through a process and assigns who's going to respond, and then that shows up in the next agenda under section 6A, in this case, unfinished business. We've got the table that shows what the matter was, who's responsible, the description of it, and who's responsible for it. We go through that every meeting and confirm that the person responsible has either done it or it stays on the list because it hasn't been done yet. And that's That's been the methodology that we've used for since I've been here. And in terms of bringing that response not only to that section and checking that the person has, we wouldn't even need this table, I guess, if we were going to bring back to the next agenda the actual responses. Well, you wouldn't need the table because you'd see that the responses had been done there, right there. But you're going to have a regurgitation of all the previous correspondence, and I've never seen it done that way. I've never did that in the 9 years I was at the SLRD, the last 4 of which was as the corporate officer. I don't think Carla's seen it done where she's been previously at Qualcomm or other local governments. So it's not, it wouldn't be the norm. I think that we've got a fairly efficient way of doing things. I agree that all correspondence ought to be copied to members of council on the responses, as well as the CAO. But then just to follow up the way we do it now with the unfinished business would be my suggestion for how we continue to ensure that those responsible for doing things have ticked them off or can talk about it at that point.
Well, just before we go back to the rest of the council members and get their opinion, I think you'll hear from some that Lions Bay doesn't necessarily follow the way everyone else does things. We've done things differently. We're a small municipality. We like to make sure that everyone gets communicated or over communicated with if we can. I'm pleased to hear that you say that we should have been copied, but we haven't. So that needs to be a correction, and we need to obviously correct that. And in this case, I mean, it was a strategy session. We discussed all these things. It just doesn't seem logical that the final piece of correspondence that we were party to and are still making decisions based on is not copied to council. I find that for me, it's just almost ridiculous. It really is. It's almost undemocratic. We wouldn't get copied on that. So I hope that at the very least that gets taken care of. I'd like to suggest on the other, what goes to the agenda and how we manage things, maybe at a follow-up meeting, I could bring a suggested review or change to these 2 policies, how I would like to see it. And everyone obviously can chime in or do likewise. But for tonight, I think the direction is, can we get copied on those items from the strategy session? And I'd like to suggest, regardless of what we do in a future review of how we do things procedurally, in this case, one time maybe it's a strategy session, a lot of people involved, and I'm sure they'd all like to hear responses to other people's opinions. I'll pause and let others from the council talk.
Actually, Councillor Abbott, I was about to put it forward as a resolution. So I presume that I asked you to do it, you did do it. I will second that and go to discussion so we can get everybody on this. And the 2 pieces were, you wanted to see the responses seen, and in the future, everybody copied, and it becomes part of public correspondence. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barmayer. Actually, just a second, Carla, did I put it forward?
No, you just confirmed with the
I asked Councillor Abbott to put it forward. I did a second, yes.
Okay.
Go for it. Discussion. Thank you. Councillor Barmayer. You have the floor.
Yeah, I think I'm in alignment with what Neville's suggesting, just generally improving communication and looping council in, specifically when the correspondence implies some sort of alignment with council. I definitely want to be in the know on those kind of back and forth. But as far as including complete correspondence in the agenda package, I think it's particularly important when when it relates to some sort of request for decision on the agenda. So I think that correspondence should be in. I'm not sure how unwieldy a back and forth correspondence package would look like. I'm not sure how much work that would be for staff. So I'd want to kind of get a feel for, the number of pages we'd be asking to add to an agenda when, for example, tonight we've got 222 pages to page through. How much more would we be adding and be reading through? I'm just curious if there's sort of a sense of whether we're looking at an additional 100 pages or what that looks like and how relevant it is.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Cunliffe.
Councillor Cunliffe.
Pardon me. Yeah, I would have to agree with Councillor, pardon me, Abbott here. I would like to be privy to the response being made on behalf of all council, just in the case I was to speak to a resident and therefore not know what was spoken to them. So I would like to see the response given. As for whether that all needs to go on the agenda package, that's something I'll have to take into consideration for further thought. But respectfully, when somebody, a resident, would like to make speak to a councillor member personally, the mayor personally, therefore there's absolutely no need to hear what is going that back and forth. But when it comes to council in general, and there is a response by one council member or the mayor on behalf of council, I would absolutely like to be in the know of what was responded to.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunliffe. Councillor Bain.
I think the four of you have convinced the fifth that I'm in agreement as well.
Thank you very much. I think too much time is being spent on this, quite frankly. I think that the issue here is that Councillor Abbott doggedness on full disclosure of everything and anything is to be commended. I don't have any issues with this. I apologize to my colleagues for having written to on behalf of you for over 2 years and not being questioned until today, and that it's suddenly important today is a bit of a statement here. So I take it for what Councillor Abbott thinks. I think the piece here is going forward. I certainly would copy the, should I be writing? I would copy the council and the CAO as well. As to having it in a correspondence section, I don't see a lot of value to that. I'll go back to my council colleagues and say, if it's a split deal, you've got the stuff going forward, or are you dying to see it in correspondence as well? Councillor Barnier?
Could I
Sure.
just reiterate my previous suggestion? This particular 26 pieces that are part of the strategy session, can we get those copied to all of residents? And then we can review at another meeting the exact policies and the changes we need to make going forward. And at that point, we can resolve how we deal with ongoing agenda, or if there's some sort of definition of what's in and what's out. But for now, could we just get all of those copied to council and residents in the agenda package?
I think we're a little past that. You put a motion forward.
And we haven't voted on it.
Call a motion.
That would be up to you.
Okay, I would like to call a motion. The motion I'd like to call is that the 26 or so pieces of email responded to by the mayor are copied to all of council and included on this agenda package. And secondly, that in a follow-up in the following meeting, we review our electronic communications policy and our correspondence policy to decide how we deal with these procedures going forward. Can I have a second?
Second.
All called. All in favor? Ayes, nays opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Councillor Bain?
Well, I guess I'm an aye on this one as well.
Good, carried unanimous, thank you. Committees, there is nothing there, which brings us to the Trees Views and Landscape Committee, tree application number 107. The recommendation is the tree cutting permit application number 107 be approved, subject to the following. Topping and trimming is to be in accordance with the photos and requested work and the application materials and the Bunbury survey obtained by the applicant. Second point, the applicant must clean up and remove all associated debris. Third, the tree cutting permit shall be valid for a period of 3 years, subject only to confirmation prior to any cutting or repeated cutting within that period of, and then the two subsections, compliance with the bylaw restrictions regarding bird nesting season. And secondly, a traffic control plan approved by Public Works and damage deposit arborist contractors WorkSafe BC certificate and insurance in compliance with municipal requirements and any other requirements of the bylaw. I'll put forward that motion. Can I have a second? Any discussion, questions on this? Councillor Abbott.
Sorry, my hand was actually up from before. I didn't take it down, but I will just make a comment. We've seen this before, and the update purely is the confirmation that the trees are on municipal land. And so in that case, I have no further comment. I think we voted on it before. Other than to commend Mr. Burr for actually doing a thorough job of following the bylaws and going through all the right procedures.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, colleagues?
Yeah, I just have a question in regards to the 3-year period. The photos here show the discrepancy between 2010 and 2020, what a view looks like. I know in 3 years, your trees may, like, is this a realistic period of time, or should this not be extended more to like 5? Just out of curiosity. Or we're just going to be back here in 3 years because, or 5 years.
I'll hand it over to the CAO, but I can say that the 3 years allows the person to recut before the end of the 3 year, essentially giving them their view for 6 years. And we've done that and approved it here at council a couple of other times. We haven't done it for longer periods. CAO, any further comment?
No, I was just going to make the same comment you just made. You can effectively get 6 years out of it.
There you go. I'm going to pause for a second here. Just been reminded, I'd like to put forward an extension of the meeting for another hour to 11 o'clock. Motion within a motion. Can I get one of the councillors to second me? All those in favor? Ayes. Thank you. Very good. We're extended to 11. Thank you. Back to this one. So CAO, nothing further to add?
No, I don't think so, unless anybody has any other questions.
Well, my only thought is that if we made this valid for a period of 5 years, we wouldn't be back here in 3 years. There would be 2-year grace period, because the trees are going to continue to grow. The view is going to continue to be obstructed. And if we just did this over 5 years in compliance with the nesting season and etc., we could streamline this a little bit.
But the applicant won't need to come back in 3 years because he'll have just cut. And so he'd probably come back in 5 years or 6 years.
Or he could come back in 10.
Yeah. I guess part of the reason for choosing 3 years was A, the logic that we just talked about, but B, properties do change hands. People's, if you move into the house next door and you have a different view of the situation, is it fair that you've got to wait 10 years to have your say as opposed to 5 years?
Does the permit, then you're saying, carries with the transfer of the property? It's not finite at the sale of a property?
No, I'm just saying that once the cutting is done, if it was a 5-year term, then the applicant or the permit holder could cut just before the expiry of the permit. And so you've got effectively 10 years. Meanwhile, if somebody else who is affected by the view, either positively or negatively, or has a perspective on the situation with those particular trees, whatever the case may be, then they don't have any opportunity to have any kind of input on the situation until it comes around for another permit, which isn't likely to happen until it's 10 years away. It's just a long time for somebody to have an opportunity to have their input on a renewal of the application.
Okay, fair enough.
Councillor Abbott?
Yeah, just commenting on that. I think there's, I think the 3 years is the right term. For the reasons the CAO just mentioned, but also there's, when I said earlier, I would commend Mr. Boer for actually following the bylaws. There are so many places in the village where people have either been given permission once, or in some cases, I think never, but continue just to continue to top trees on village land just because some of them maybe think they have a right or they have done so. And I think if you extend it any longer, it's going to get to that situation where people just think, well, I've got a 10-year permit, so I can do it anytime I like. I think we should keep it to the 3 years, and we should be encouraging people to follow the bylaw, go through the processes. They're there for a reason, and for neighbours to have input, to make the process fair. So I wouldn't vote for extending it. I would rather vote for encouraging people that don't follow the policy to actually fall in line.
Councillor Cunliffe, if you're fine with the...
Yeah, I wasn't actually suggesting that we extend it. I was just asking the reason we don't.
Okay.
Because it does seem inevitable that this is going to come up again time after time. And we do have some long-term residents here that go through this process every few years as opposed to a longer period of time. But the reasoning makes perfect sense to me. And so I'm quite happy to just leave it as it is.
Thank you very much. That being said, then I will call the motion. All those in favor, ayes, nays opposed.
Aye.
Aye.
Go, passed, thank you. And to Mr. and Mrs. Burr, sure a little red wine tonight on that one after a long time of getting to here. Congratulations. Next piece up is emergency services on page 153. And this is our CMP report, and we're being asked to receive this, which I'll put that forward. Can I have a second? Thank you. Any questions on this? Anything to say about it?
Well, just if I might, just a couple of things that I picked up on it in Lions Bay Village. I've highlighted 2 calls for mischief, 2 calls for assault. That doesn't sound like Lions Bay anymore. And then on the highway, we've got incidents of road rage for 2. I don't know if people have been locked down too much or what's going on here, but I don't remember it being like that for quite a while.
Okay. Let's go with, I'll call a motion in. The motion is to receive the report. All those in favor, ayes, nays opposed.
Aye.
Thank you. There we go.
Aye.
Moving. Thank you, colleagues. The resolutions, there are none. Correspondence, and that would be Councillor Abbott. I hope he's got a glass of water so he nips through this quickly. And I can say that this will be Councillor Abbott's last piece of correspondence as the quarter ends, and it now goes to, and the fickle finger of fate goes to Councillor Bain for the next quarter. Congratulations, Councillor Bain.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And on that note, I would like to thank Carla, I'm assuming, if I'm giving the credit to the wrong person, let me know, for the table we now have up front in the correspondence. And my only regret is it didn't happen 3 months ago, because it certainly was a benefit trying to go through the package. It'll make Councillor Bay in future much easier. So on that note, I think you're going to find there's some repeats in here, so I'm going to try not to go over them again. The first one, City of Roseland on universal no-cost access to prescription contraception. We did discuss that and decided just to receive it previously, so I think we'll do the same again. On the second one, this is the Tunnel Bluffs proposal for an access trail at the lower level on the highway to go to Tunnel Bluffs. I think this is certainly part of a bigger conversation. I had to read it several times to understand it because, to my mind, Tunnel Bluffs, even though it wasn't Tunnel Bluffs when I called that when I went 3 years ago, is accessed by going up on the south side of Magnesia Creek and cross up towards on the Lions Trail and crossing over much higher up. So there was a bit of confusion in between here between Tunnel Bluffs and Tunnel Point Crags, I think they called it. So I think if we do want to review this, we need someone that to come present it to us and give us a better understanding of what it's proposing. I know it's trying to stop the people that go across to those crag climbing. It's about 1.5 kilometers north of Brunswick Beach, where they run across the highway. But it would seem that the intention would be people then wanted to hike what's kind of be called Tunnel Bluffs would now have another option to hike lower down in the village or lower down to the highway and go up that way, which I think we need to consider as the larger conversation of parking and all the rest of it that we're looking at. And then I guess one point, I think they were referring to Mr. Dudley in here and not Mr. Dudra. Anyway, I don't, other than what further action to take, or so Peter's getting his hand up, I guess. Sorry, I'll look up.
I think you've only touched on the problems, Peter.
So I did talk to Mr. Kubik, gave him a phone call just to clarify some of the information that was in his correspondence. The objective is really to create a trail. At the end of the day, we discussed some of the options and some of the challenges and so forth. But in his mind, the best option is to create a trail from Crystal Falls Road as low as possible, possibly using some of BC Hydro right away, and essentially connecting to the Tunnel Bluffs trail that currently begins across from the parking lot at the tunnel point. So that's where people used to park, run across the highway until Modi put 15-minute parking limit on it because they didn't want people running across the highway. So essentially, the new trail would connect to that trail fairly low down. Little ways up, there's a spot he talked about. But essentially, yeah, that's what he's got in mind. I talked to him about the challenges of going any higher and the fact that there's other private property beyond the village boundaries and so forth. But in terms of parking, we talked a little bit about that. His idea was to promote as much as possible transit to get to and from the hike. We talked a little bit about the fact that if you come back from the hike a little too late and miss your last bus, you're hooped. But anyways, there was a number of things that we talked about, but just thought I'd share that with council.
Councillor Abbott, what's your recommendation here? They come back and give us the story again?
My recommendation was we got more information, which the CEO has received some of already. And if we are looking at doing anything with this, we should get Mr. Kubik or someone else to come present something to us with with better clarity, but I also believe it's part of the bigger conversation on the parking. So my recommendation for now is to receive, but suggest that someone comes with a delegation and presents to us.
So, sorry, there was one other point that I should mention that was discussed, and that is the idea that he's presenting requires the public to be invited to cross what is essentially a private bridge over Magnesia Creek, the wood bridge, the single lane bridge. It was previously the subject of easement agreement between Mr. Vestergaard up the hill and the three Lions Bay residents that are up that road. The easements that previously existed going up that access road were actually dissolved by the vesting of the road in the village in 2011, and that's all detailed in the report that I brought in 2018 regarding the Crystal Falls lands. But the key point here in terms of this letter is that the public would be invited to walk across that bridge and up a road past people's right now very remote and secluded houses, and then continue along a trail to be built if permission can be obtained from the powers that be in the province and other agencies. So there is that aspect of it as well that is a challenge, not only in terms of legalities of it, but in terms of the impact on the residents who live up that way. Sorry, that was all.
So really, the key point here is he needs these four landowners to agree to this. That's the basis of his plan.
I think that would probably be a wise, and I suggested that to him, that that would be a wise next step for him to take, would be to talk to those landowners before he expends too much time and effort pursuing it.
Councillor Abbott, if you think that's the wiser choice, perhaps you'd recommend that?
Well, I think absolutely he needs to speak to Mr. Vestergaard. Much point coming to us with the suggestion that that he can't get past the landowners, but assuming that he's done that, I suggest he comes back and presents something to council and we take it from there. But thumbs up from Councillor Bain.
Yeah, I guess the point that I'm making is that we don't actually have the legal capacity to grant permission for him to cross that bridge, not our bridge.
I mean, I wouldn't devote, sorry, Councillor, sorry, CAO. To my colleagues, I wouldn't devote the time to this if he's not going to get it through our residents. He's got to win the victory first.
Agreed.
Well, accepted, but there's also a bit of a chicken and egg situation. He's asking for our support. It is going to impact us and our parking plans and other things. But sure, the first question is, the residents even interested? Is Mr. Vestergaard even interested? Was he going to allow it? At that point, we need to go. But it's, whether we have the legal right to grant the plan or not, we are impacted. Neighbour, if nothing worse, significantly impacted. So if it is going to go forward, I think you should have to be spoken to those residents. Present something to us.
It's a friendly recommendation, Councillor Abbott. Can we ask that the CAO contact him again and ask him to do that? Councillor Abbott?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, you're good. Your video went, but your voice is live.
Yeah, for some reason, the closed meeting just came up over my screen and blocked the rest of it out. Yeah, as I fumbled there, yes, I'm good with what I believe I heard you say, yes.
Thank you very much. CAO, if you could contact them electronically or by phone. And if something comes of it, then it'll come back to council. Thank you, Councillor Abbott.
The next one is the City of Nelson. They believe that vaccination priorities should include essential infrastructure workers, different situation to where we are as part of Metro. I think we could just receive that. I don't think we have the same concern or same issues with infrastructure workers that are critical. Pause, no comment from anyone else. I'll assume we agree, we'll just receive it. The next one was Bill C-213, Pharma Care. Once again, we've had this one before. And I'm sure there's lots of other people working on this, so I think we should just receive it.
Councillor Abbott, we're going to presume that we're going with your recommendation unless somebody shoots their hand up.
Well, I will just pause to see if anyone wants to chime in. I'm sure we've all read these. The next one, the City of North Van and the ban on anticoagulant rodenticides. This one resonates with me. I think I was reading it when I could hear the owl outside my window. We've got a resident owl, and a very pleasant sound. I don't know if we have any legislation that allows these, but I certainly think we should be looking at adding it into the appropriate price. It sounds like an issue for anyone that has pets or anyone that is a nature lover. So although it seems like a political type motivated issue, I think it does resonate with me, and I think we should consider adding it into our bylaws. Now he's got his fingers up. He obviously has information on this.
Yeah, so we do have a pesticide control bylaw where this would slide in, and we will be revisiting that bylaw in the spring. It's on our list of things to do. So this will be included in the revision of the bylaw.
Okay. Can I request to make the spring early spring as soon as possible? Starts in February.
It's on the list.
The next one is MP Weiler's 2020 year in review. I'm sure we all worked through this and picked out the bits and pieces that were most relevant to us. What jumped out to me was the number of grants and the types of grants that were received by others in the corridor or in the riding, should I say. Bowen Island got $4 million for a community centre. Pemberton got $1.5 million for a new washroom and sports field. Lions Bay Beach Park, anyone? So I certainly hope that we got a good winning submission this time and we're on next year's list. I don't think there's anything further we can do or need to do. And if anyone else had there's lots of information there. If anyone else had anything else out of that
relative to the grants, MP Weiler is very aware of my views and the village's views on the receipt of the grant funding by other communities.
Okay, that's it for that part of correspondence. Then we're on to resident correspondence. Okay, probably I've got it done with that glass of water, but anyway, let me just keep going. Maybe I'll just do it for the correspondence table because I have made some notes. The first one is Mr. Stretsky's email on village finances, and a response from Theo de Jong, referring to spending, I guess, spending problem, not a revenue problem, spending problem. People have used that phrase a few times. It seems to be going around. I think the responses have been received, and Mr. Stretch's opinion has been received.
I concur.
Okay, so we'll look forward to anything else from Mr. Stretsky on these matters as we go through the budget cycle. The next one is Mayor Broughton on the strategic planning session. Once again, that was responded to by the mayor and then copied back to all of us. I think we all take, and once again, it was a focus on spending, spending and finances coming at the strategic planning session. If anyone else would like to reply back to that, it's had several replies. I think the position is understood and stated. I guess what I could do is I could reply to these two, seeing no one else offers to, but I do not necessarily intend to add any more information. I think just confirm that we've received them and their position has been heard.
Thank you for your offer.
Third one, public consultation, Penny Nelson. For those that don't know, full disclosure, Penny is my wife, and she responded to the mayor's response to her, and it is something she spoke about earlier in the meeting, about public consultation and the 7 core principles of public participation. I don't intend to respond. I would suggest that someone else from council can, if they would, or can or should.
I'll respond.
The next one is Mr. Odifi on the cell tower. This was the this was the one. I need to jump to my notes one. This is one for the additional information, I think, and I think the answer was provided. Am I correct? Or do we, I think we owe this gentleman a response as to where to find the information he was missing. I apologize, my PDF writer's all gone goofy and I can't pick up where these notes are.
If I can make a comment on this, Councillor Abbott, Mr. Odify wrote this, but there's reasons that some of the stuff is blocked out. Let's just suffice to say he knows when, as with Chimera, what the situation is and when the information will come forward, and that's really what he was looking for. So I would say in this one, he's been responded to.
Okay. Sorry, I just got my notes back. Okay, the previous one on the cell tower health impact study. Okay, right, got that. The following one is Mr. Schneider on the wood burning bylaw, suggesting that it be challenged on a legal basis. I think most of us read this. Certainly I know from some other councillors, they certainly did. I would suggest that it's council's opinion that we as a council or as a municipality do not intend to go down that line, and we respect Metro's jurisdiction. I could respond to Mr. Schneider hasn't been responded to. But further than that, I don't have much to add to the debate. Anyone else?
Thank you for your offer.
The next 5 are the ones on the water treatment plant. We all said we'd read them. They had various suggestions around what we discussed earlier in the meeting. Mainly, everyone's voting for a parcel. Everyone's suggesting a parcel tax over a certain period. Typically, not everyone did. There were some suggestions that it should be over the life of the project, etc. But I don't see any need to go back to these residents other than to inform them of the outcome of the meeting. Some of them are actually currently on the call and probably waiting for me to stop talking so they can have something to say. So I won't go through each one line by line, but there were C. Watson, Mr. and Mrs. McLaughlin, Mrs. Azordigan, Mr. Jew, and Mr. Shretsky. That brings us to the end of the correspondence.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for 3 months of hard slogging on the correspondence section, Councillor Abbott. And your work on this is much appreciated. Your offers to respond today is much appreciated. And we are concluding that. And there is no new business. And looking at the clock, it's time for public questions, comments, 2 minutes per. We have quite a lot of work to do, so unlike the beginning at the end, we will be going in succession for a maximum of 10 minutes on a topic of this agenda. And Carla, I'm in a different screen. If there's a resident that would like to speak, please either put your hand up or unmute and put your hand up in your video, and I'll call your name and we'll go there. Mr. Shretsky, you look fired up.
Yes, hello. I would like to explore options of relocation of the artworks instead of to Britannia Beach upper levels into 2 possible locations at the top of Ocean View Road, going towards the water tank. Have we ever considered it? And if so, perhaps I can present to somebody in administration.
Did I interpret that right? You were thinking of painting the dead water tank at the top of Ocean View?
Relocating the public works yard up there.
Oh, taking our public works yard up there. Well, it's the wrong terrain and it's not big enough. I'd be my first impression, CAO.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Jaffer.
I'm not aware of a site that's large enough along Ocean View. We're looking for something in around 14,000 square feet.
There are 2 locations there above on the way up to the tanks that are large enough. Perhaps you want to take a look yourself and then.
Sure, we'll take a look.
Given interest, let me know and I'll assist you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Swidsky. Another resident, if you'd like to go to the video or unmute or give me a signal. Anybody, Carla?
I don't see anyone.
Hello, hi. Can I ask a question?
Tamara? Yes, Tamara, you're up. You got your 2 minutes, please.
I just wanted to make some comments around financial prudence and just basic. I know you passed a budget tonight and you have more budgeting coming forward. And I just know that with COVID, everything has changed and contracted. We don't gather as much as we used to. We've seen a lot of our events either constrict and move and become smaller or be canceled altogether. So our events budgets have significantly shrunk across the village. People aren't gathering. And I just really think that when you're planning your budgets, really think about where you can constrict as well, where it doesn't make sense to spend lavishly, or if we don't have the income in terms of grants to support projects, that we maybe hold off for a year or two and just see when it makes sense. Because pushing through things and maintaining large overhead when we're not in a time of boom sends the wrong message. And I think really back to core values. A lot of people moved here to Lions Bay, not for tremendous amount of amenities. In fact, it's the reverse. People came here for the natural beauty. Our backbone of our culture is volunteerism. So a lot of our most precious things come from volunteerism, the Trails Committee, the Remembrance Day service, Halloween, the Dip and Dash, Canada Day, the gatherings and the events have always been volunteer driven with minimal support and a minimal ask coming from the village. But really look at where you can carry forward that spirit, and where it doesn't make sense, don't spend. That's just my comment.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tamara, for joining in tonight. And thank you for your comments at the early part about the cell tower or communication tower, and this as well. Thank you and have a good evening. Anybody else from the residents? Got another couple minutes. Carl, anybody? All right, then we will close the session on the public participation, as we'll be going to the closed council meeting. So to the residents who joined us, thank you very, very much for being part of us. And for those of you who spoke, thank you very much for that too. And we're going to say goodnight to you as we are going into the in-camera session. So as I'm reading through, we'll say goodbye to you as you sign off. Council members, hang on there until we pass it. So the closed council meeting proposed topics for discussion in the absence of the public are the 50th anniversary committee, CN Railway crossings, union agreement, CAO review, village right of ways, and correspondence. And that the meeting be closed to public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the community charter. Section 90, subsection 1, a part of the council meeting may be closed to public if the subject matter being considered relates to or is one of, or is one or more of the following sections A, C, E, J, K, N. On top of that, we'll add section 90, subsection 2, with references matters dealing with senior government. Council does not anticipate reconvening the open meeting for any purpose other than to adjourn the meeting generally and report out if applicable. I'll put forward that motion. If I could have a seconder from one of my colleagues in concurrence. Thank you. Any discussion, any changes, please advise now. Otherwise, I'll call and we'll pass. No discussion, we'll pass. Thank you very much. And go into close now. And to, again, the residents who are hanging on, good night.